Good evening and welcome to the school committee meeting of December 13th, 2017. That's not... As always, we start the meeting. I'd like to remind everyone this meeting is being recorded for use at a later date and also it is being broadcast live. I'd ask you to please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Would you also please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if you look on your agenda this evening, we have executive session first because we had an appointment with an attorney, so I'm going to read this and then I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session by voice call. To discuss strategy with respect to litigation, MCAD complaint, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body, and I do believe it does. To discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Whitman Hanson Education Association, because an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and I do believe that it has. So I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
thank you. We should be out of executive session of approximately 7.
And then he's out. And then do MCAS.
We've come out of executive session. I want to remind everyone this is being recorded, and it's also being broadcast live. I opened the meeting, and then we went into executive session, and I announced we'd be coming out of executive session and coming right into the meeting. So thank you all for coming this evening. And again, this is being recorded. So, we've already done the pledge and the moment of silence. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of November 8th, 2017.
So moved.
Any discussion? With Mr. O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien.
I've been sneezing.
Okay. Here it comes. We're waiting on you. Robbie, I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 8th, 2017 in a second. Any discussion from you?
All good.
Anyone else? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining. Mr. Cullity abstained. Okay, we're going to move around just a little bit for the sake of getting people in and out. David Larry, could you, yes?
Quick question before we start.
Sure,
I'll come to the mic because I know you yell at me.
good.
My name's Peggy Westfield and I live on State Street in Hanson, and my question is about technology and getting in touch with the school committee. I sent an email, I don't know, a week and a half ago, and most of the school committee emails bounced back to me. It came back with Bob's personal email and Rob's personal email, so I sent them an email, about my concerns. I want to know if the technology issue has been addressed. 3 of the Whitman people, the emails came back without an address to send it to. I just think that everyone in Whitman and Hanson should be able to reach out to their school committee people.
I didn't realize.
You never got my email. I saw Mike Jones at church, and I said, Mike, did you get my email? And he said, what email? So I don't know who's in charge of technology, but
Chad, can you look at that?
Can you check and see, why school committee emails don't go to school
Can I
committee
talk to you
members?
after, just to figure out
Yeah.
who you sent it to and where you sent
Oh,
it?
I sent it to every one of them,
No, what email address?
the Whitman Hanson email.
Okay.
And I assume it's supposed to
You
be.
got it right from the website. I assume
Straight
you
from the
just clicked
website.
Right on.
Okay.
I'll check.
Okay, thank you.
I know, I got Peggy's because I called her up.
He called me right away. He's afraid I'm a loose cannon.
No, Peg, it's a respect thing. It's not a loose cannon. No.
I just think that, if mine
we
are
didn't-
bouncing
we
back,
didn't
it's
know.
the parents or other
No.
community members who want to access.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. David Larry, how are you? Fine, Dave's our treasurer. He's going to give us an OPEB report and a treasurer's report.
Good evening. Thank you for taking me out of order. Just want to update the school committee on financials for the last year. District still maintains a strong debt position. After the payment that's made on January 1st, 2018, the high school will only have a balance of $5,400,000 in principal. And there's a $375,000 short-term note for technology. And other than that, the district is entirely debt-free, which is great. We've maintained our AA bond rating throughout every year. Standard & Poor's reviews that, and they have continued to affirm us at a AA. We have a solid cash flow month to month to meet our obligations. And I'd also like to point out that because interest rates have come up quite a bit in the last year, our investment income is up significantly year over year. And we estimated we'd get about $30,000 in revenue for earnings on investments for the entire fiscal year. Through the end of November, we've surpassed that by $1,800 so far. We've still got 7 months worth of time to go. So, and on a similar note, Plymouth County, we invested the OPEB money with Plymouth County. We've put in $150,000 last year. That returned 14.5% to the district. So our OPEB valuation, not valuation, but balance, in terms of what we've put in and what it's worth is now $172,000. So we've made a good return on that in the last year. We've also moved some money that was sitting in very low interest rate paying in checking accounts into an investment with an investment firm. We have 4 or 5 scholarships that total about a little over $400,000. So we've invested that in something that's a little bit more aggressive but still very safe, and we're doing well with that. So that's basically where we're at.
Anyone have any questions? For all of you that don't know, David is the treasurer through the school committee. His job is to make sure and double and triple check everything. As all of us know, we have our annual audit. It was just finished. We sat with the auditors, and they're going to be coming actually to give a report so everyone knows where we stand that way.
January.
Pardon me?
I expect them to come in January.
Yes.
I spoke to them, and I should have draft financials before Christmas break, and then review them, and then they should be coming out in January, finalizing them.
So there's double, triple checks here on everything that goes on in the district. I just wanted to make that fact. So, David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David.
Okay. Student advisor, Mara is here with us. Mara Bird, how are you, Mara?
I'm busy this holiday season, but good.
Don't be afraid to speak up.
Here at the high school, November 13th, there was a successful meat raffle held at Damien's Pub to support the Panther Education Trust Fund. December 20th, from 6 to 8 p.m., the Panther's Den School Store invites you to join them during their holiday evening shopping hours. The school store is located on the first floor of the high school between the main office and gym entrances. These are typically very busy nights for them, so it's recommended you arrive early to make sure you get the sizes and colors that you're looking for. If you have ever been to the school store, you'll pleasantly surprised to find they carry some top-tier brands and quality products. Hot-selling items at the moment include Under Armour hoodies, Adidas crew neck sweatshirts, new Arab beanie winter hats, giant sweatshirt blankets, and ladies' long-sleeve billboard and sweatshirt tees, just to name a few. They only accept cash or checks, and pricing is very affordable right now, with their most expensive item costing only $45. So please feel free to follow them on Twitter and Instagram to see pictures of their products. This year, in hopes of streamlining the yearbook process, there has been a website created as a place to house all the links, information, deadlines, examples, and contacts. It will be updated as more information becomes available. So for anyone, students and faculty alike, that may have questions regarding the yearbook, they can visit the website at whpanthers.wix.com/yearbook, which can also be found on the school website. November 24th, there was held a successful Panera Dine-Out night in support of the Panther Education Trust Fund. November 30th, the annual 8th grade open house was held here at the high school with great success. December 2nd, Women Hanson Dollars for Scholars processed orders for gift cards this holiday season as part of its fall fundraising drive. December 12th, last night, successfully was held the annual high school winter concert with a beautiful job done by our band and chorus. At Whitman Middle School, November 23rd, a successful 23rd annual turkey trot was held. Although it was a chilly morning, over 400 students participated by running and creating the logo poster. Thanks go out not only to the students and staff, but especially Mr. Scarpelli and Miss O'Leary for the organization, and Mr. Brian Schwabe, who graciously donates the winning turkeys. The winning turkey trot design poster went to grade 6 student Travis Caholi. Madeline O was the top for the girls, and Nathan Tassi was the top for the boys. Whitman Middle is pleased to announce the opening of their online apparel store through Jostens. They have thousands of custom school t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, jerseys, backpacks, and other accessories in stock. Customize any of the school's designs to fully personalize your product by choosing colors, text, and even adding a back design. The school receives 12% of each order, so it's an amazing fundraiser for the middle school. All items are shipped directly to you. The 8th grade trip itinerary can also be found on the school's website. Yearbooks are also available for purchase, which the link can be found on the website. Santa's Secret Workshop will be held at Indian Head School Library for Indian Head as well as Mequon, Monday, December 11th through Thursday, December 14th. At Mequon, November 24th, there was held a successful Panera Dine-Out for the Panther Education Trust Fund. Let's see. Sorry. The Mequon School Store will be open on Wednesdays from 8:50 to 9:20 a.m. beginning October 4th, 2017. Students may spend up to $1 cash and purchase supplies such as pencils, erasers, rulers, sharpeners, notebooks, pocket folders, etc. Prices range from 5 cents to 75 cents per item. The schedule can be found on the school website.
Anyone have any questions with Mara before she leaves? Thank you very much. Great detailed report. Thank you. Okay. Superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you very much. It is that time of the year that we present our MCAS results from 2017. So this evening, we have our curriculum directors here, as well as building principals. Rosamond Dorrance has been working with them, and they have a PowerPoint, which is here, and I will turn it over to them. I think they've worked out who's going to speak, and then they are available for any questions after that. All right.
Okay. I don't need a pointer. I think I'm good. Let's keep it simple.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. You can go ahead to start. Yeah, Bob will be right back.
Good evening. Tonight we are here to talk we won't take too much time, about our MCAS results. I'm going to actually begin just looking at our high school results as we begin to move towards the next gen MCAS. We still currently are in the legacy MCAS. We've been in this test for, gosh, what is it, about 20 years now? So our high school results in ELA, it's hard to see the results, but we have continued to push forward. This year, again, we are at 93% advanced and proficient together. We continue to move kids from proficient to the advanced column, so you can see that column continue to get larger, the dark blue. And we're in the same realm in our mathematics scores. This test our kids do extremely well on in the high school. They've been working towards this for many, many years. So you can see the same typical results in math. They are at, I think it's 81%, or is it 81% advanced and proficient. So again, we continue to move in that trend of proficiency in this realm. Next year, we are moving into the next generation MCAS. So our current sophomores, this will be the last year of the legacy test. So next year, our current freshmen will be in the new test. Now, last year, 3 to 8, all of our kids were in we tested in the next gen. So they did the online portion. This new test that our kids, we have to begin preparing for in the high school, focuses on much more critical thinking, application, The writing is completely different. Everything is text-based. So this will replace as our high-stakes graduation exam. So our current freshmen, as I said, will be the first class to have to go through this for graduation requirements. So last year was 3 to 8. We did it in 2017, all computer-based. So in the high school, this will be a major shift. We are moving from the paper pencil test into an online platform, which is extremely different. Just to give you a quick look, the old legacy, we have that typical long comp, and this was a 4th grade one, and I think I shared this last year, of the, you come to a door, you're going to babysit, and there you have an elephant that you have to babysit. Versus now, next gen, when you look at the type of questions they are asking our kids, it is all based on passages. This year, our question for 4th grade, Alex the parrot, a true story, write an essay to explain how Alex changed as he spent more time with Irene. Be sure to use information from the passage to develop your essay. So kids not only have to write something, but they actually have to read this. They have to internalize, they have to understand character development, they have to then include dialogue, they have to understand that this is a narrative task that they are sending out. And this is a 4th grade passage. And if you actually look at the passage that they wrote, they can be up to 3 pages. This is online reading, so it's very, very different than what our kids have been used to over the years. And our 7th grade passage, again, they're also mixing, we had the old long comps that they had, but the new one, this is where I want you to take a look at, based on steerage and Voyage of Tears. Write an essay that explains how the lives of immigrants are portrayed. So now they have to synthesize passages. They have to develop an idea. And it's not just essays. They're kind of throwing things there. They're mixing poetry as well as nonfiction articles. So even teachers, as they're looking at this, they're like, they think they have it with, we'll pair nonfiction. And now we're looking, you can't just pair nonfiction. There has to be poetry involved. There has to be fiction. So it is a whole new skill set for our kids. So they are much more in depth. And our kids have to be proficient readers to complete the writing. And not to mention, we are moving away from the open responses where kids could write a response and have the answer correct and not be scored down for their grammar or spelling. This is all grammar, spelling. It's everything in one. So it's a much more difficult piece. And I'm going to kind of turn it over to Brian so he can show you the switches.
Amy, can I ask a quick question?
Oh, sure.
Better or worse? To me, it sounds worse. And I hate MCAS. I hate teachers have to go to a standard. I've hated it since they started. So I love your enthusiasm. It sounds 10 times worse.
It's a much more rigorous test.
Okay.
It is all aligned, obviously, with our frameworks. And I hate that idea of teaching to a test. For me, it's not teaching to a test. Our teachers, they know their frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
If they are teaching, they're using reading strategies. We are all working on that academic language. That's the most important thing. For me, it's the computer piece. We need technology in our kids' hands. Mm-hmm. As an English teacher, when I taught annotating, we're annotating on paper, we're drafting on paper, and then we take our time, we go back, and we got to the computer. That was the last part. Well, now kids are expected to read online, a very, very different skill, and then go right to the writing and typing. And we did this last year in a 6th grade class, and it was just so interesting, even as I prepped with the 6th grade teachers, to see how difficult it is for students to read something. And if you have the time to look at the practice tests, they have to scroll down on one side, they toggle between 2 articles. I mean, they don't have the paper to highlight in front of them. And that is a skill that as English teachers, we do all the time. So that need for Chromebooks in our classrooms, that is something my entire department, that's all we hear about, because, we can read things online, but if the kids don't practice, we feel like we're setting them up for failure. If they don't have those devices, we have to put them in their hands.
So are they able to do that now most of the time, some of the time? Give me the honest answer.
Honest answer. We are at the high school. Currently, we have now Jeff, thankfully, just got an additional Chrome card, and they're always working. The principals are always finding resources for us whenever they can.
Yep.
But will I say we have enough? Absolutely not.
Okay.
We have one card currently that we are sharing between the history and the ELA department. I have 10 teachers with one card.
How many Chromebooks on one card?
30. So I hold the cow cart calendar on mine, and every day I get ding, Mr. Patello, ding, Miss Drosos. And so I know which period where it's going, but that's one cart.
Yeah.
And now we're pushing our teachers towards using Google Classroom and Twitter and all of these great things that help our students, but we can't give them devices.
Right.
So it is something that I think, and we talk about this, like at the sixth grade meeting, we were talking about it this week, that need for that practice with them. They get them once in a while, and it's hard, and the teachers are willing to share, but, you need them in your classroom, so.
Excellent, thank you, Amy.
My plug for that.
Anyone else? Thank you, Amy.
Good evening, Brian Seeley, the Math Curriculum Director. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. The slide's been up long enough. I presume we've all solved both those problems. So they are testing the same standard, but in drastically different ways. On the left, you can see a very straightforward skill-based comparison of two fractions. And on the right, it's not obvious that you're going to be comparing fractions. Amy alluded to the greater emphasis on reading, and she showed a fourth grade example of that from the ELA test. Here's an example where on the math test, reading and interpreting the question correctly is important to have success with the item. The other thing of note is that in addition to the way the question is presented, the fact that students are required to choose 3 correct answers makes it inherently a more demanding, rigorous question. And that is a 1-point item. So a student who's unable to select those 3 correct answers will not receive any credit.
Same thing, computer-based?
Same thing, computer-based. And if you do, I want to come back with that if I could. I just want to show you this example explicitly shows where it is computer-based in a way that you couldn't quite replicate on pencil and paper. And again, it's the same. So we're on to 8th grade now. It's the same standard of identifying the understanding the systems of equations when there's one solution, no solution, infinitely many solutions. In the case of the question on the left, it's a very traditional, straightforward, multiple choice A, B, C, or D question. On the right, you're really pushing the rigor for students to be able to demonstrate that deep level of understanding. And again, a 1-point item, it's to me that the difference is profound. To your question, Mr. O'Brien, so I think this needs to be stated up front. We as a district were very wise to give Park on a computer for all students in grades 3 through 8 for the 2 years prior to the new MCAS rollout this past spring. I'd like to take some credit for being involved in that decision, but it was made before I came. But for any of you who were, you are to be applauded because we did, at that time, take a risk that I believe has certainly paid off for our students, where in other districts, students were sitting down to take a test on a computer for the first time last year, the new MCAS, and for our students, that was not the case unless they had just come to us. So that ramped up the need for devices, and we got to a point, we are at a point where we can test on a computer in all grades 3 to 8 for all students in ELA math. But to Amy's point, we're not where we need to be as far as being able to utilize them on a widespread scale with instruction and assessment on a day in and day out basis in Whitman Hanson. And she alluded to the shortage at the high school. It's more dramatic at the elementary and middle school levels. And again, we try to incrementally increase the amount of devices that are available to students and to teachers to use in their classrooms, but we're not close to where we need to be. And we're seeing where the curriculum resources that are available to us, and the middle school math and science programs are a prime example, are really greatly enhanced with digital access. We're kind of getting to the point where the traditional textbook and resources obsolete. And the more access you have to a lot of things that are either quite affordable or literally free and just depend upon the teacher having devices to put in front of their students, for math, it's made a world of difference. The types of things that teachers can do with devices in the hands of their students is really eye-opening compared to where things were just a couple of years ago. And like I said, a lot of those digital resources or supplemental digital resources are at no cost. It's just a matter of having the access to the devices in the classroom. And getting students throughout the year opportunities to be assessed on a computer so that it's not for the first time that year on the high stakes MCAS. Let me see where I left off. So you got a little sample there for the difference between a traditional and a new MCAS style question. What you see here on this slide is a summary of our spring 2017 MCAS results. And if you can recall the first two slides that Amy had up here, we had, and those were from grade 10 and the legacy MCAS, the biggest columns were on the left. They were in the advanced and the proficient categories. And when you look at this, you see something different. And it's very important to put this into the appropriate context. The state has made very clear that the way they're scoring the new MCAS in grades 3 through 8 and the way they will eventually score the new MCAS in grade 10 is much different than the way they had scored the legacy MCAS. Gone are the advanced proficient needs improvement labels, and in place are exceeding expectations, meeting expectations, partially meeting expectations, or not meeting expectations. And they treated this first year as a benchmark, one in which they statewide pretty much in each grade, and whether it's ELA or it's math, we happen to be looking at ELA right now, I'll switch over to math in a moment, set as a goal in mind to have 50% fall on one side and the other 50% roughly on the other. And we compare, you know, pretty similar to how the results went statewide. And the reason that the state did this, and one way to interpret it is to make things worse and harder on us. But the other side of that is that there's a greater emphasis right now being placed on getting students to be career and college ready. And you can't start that once they get to high school. And you can't start that once they get to middle school, as scary as that sounds. And so what the state is, I think, ideally trying to do is provide feedback to parents, students, schools, districts along that continuum and progression towards success. And success is defined differently depending on what grade you are and what the next step in your education looks like. But I don't see this as a direction, as heading in the wrong direction. I think there's a lot of growing pains that are going to come from this. I think there's you can't go overboard in interpreting the results from just the very first year. It's going to be a little while before things kind of settle and water reaches its level. And I think the state has said as much. They anticipate that scores across the state, and I expect this will be true in our district as well, will improve incrementally as teachers, students adjust, as curriculum changes. And the other point that I would make is that I agree with Amy. We're not teaching to a test. We are being increasingly loyal to the standards. We are recognizing that the demands on students are different now than they once were, and that is going to have an effect on instruction. It's going to have an effect on assessment, and we treat the MCAS as just sort of an opportunity to demonstrate the improvements that we're making in those areas. So again, if you try to compare what you see in this graphic to the ones that Amy showed from grade 10, you'd be making a mistake, because it's very clear to everyone that this is a whole different goal that we're trying to meet. That this is a different standard that has been set. And again, it's a pretty similar story when it comes to our 3 to 8 math results as well. So I would summarize my comments as follows. I don't think that there's a whole lot to react or overreact to here. I think that the biggest takeaway for you, and I can assure you that internally what we're doing with teachers is far more detailed than what we're doing with you tonight. We are going through the items that have been released, seeing what the descriptions are of the items that weren't released, looking at how we compared on each individual item to the state, and does that show a hole in our curriculum that needs to be filled? Are the changes that we're making, the sequencing that we're doing, not, again, to teach to a test and to get better results, but are we doing right by our students? So there's no reason to overreact or to panic by any means. And as was the case with the high school results, we compare consistent to what's happened across the state. But if we want to shoot for the moon and we really want to move the district forward profoundly, it's going to require a significant investment in increased technology, a significant investment in staff and professional development, in really getting at the heart of why it is that roughly half our kids are not, according to the state's definition anyway, meeting the standard to move on and be successful in the next grade. Questions?
No, we've got MCAS questions.
Yeah, so I assume that when all this comes out, you have to study these numbers and you pull teachers in and you go over this data. My concern with that is that the more teachers leave their classrooms, and I mean, the kids aren't doing, I mean, you've got a sub watching them for a while, and so the kids are going to school that day, and now they're not actually working on the things that make them smarter and better because they're just being watched by a sub for a little while, you know. So, you know, is there a way to balance that where you can have the teachers have the time to go over your like the demands that are required to process the information, but not be leaving the students so much to do it? Do you have any feedback on that?
Sure. So at the middle school, that structure exists already, and the work that I described that you alluded to is done through built-in meeting time that is not where teachers would not otherwise be in front of their students, so they're not being removed from their classroom for us to come together and do a whole bunch of things, including look at MCAS results. The elementary is trickier. We have currently 4 buildings. We have not that same structure in place. And with the time that you're referring to, which would be outside of the school day, really, professional development is nowhere near adequate in terms of what needs to be done, not just to look at MCAS results. That can theoretically be done building-based through PLC. But I think when you're referring to teacher leader meetings, to try to make the type of improvements and changes that are necessary to the curriculum and have those changes impact across the district as opposed to just in one building or another or in one town or another, requires far more time than is already built into our schedule.
So some sort of adjustment in either the annual schedule in terms of how many professional development type days there are.
No question about that. To be perfectly honest with you, even if we got more of those, I don't know that we could afford to allocate them to the type of work that you're alluding to, which is really curriculum development.
Okay.
There's such a high need for true professional development where teachers are actually getting some type of enhancement in their understanding of either content or technology. If we give them more devices, how do they get better at using them? It's a hard thing, you know, and that's a balance that we've tried to be sensitive to. We've changed a little bit how we've done the teacher leader this year to try to avoid having the same person removed from their class so many times, because I know that was a big concern last year. But I'm open to any ideas. We're all open to any ideas as to how we can try to move the elementary curriculum forward, not just in math, but in the other subject areas as well, and do it in an efficient way where it includes enough stakeholders that it's not just being sent in from the top down, so that they can sort of share out within their teams what we're working on, what we're doing. But not include so many people that we're, you know, it's a very difficult balance to strike. That's what I would say. And I think it's still a work in progress.
Anyone
But
else?
especially as a parent of an elementary student, I can certainly
yeah,
see
well,
being
3 last year.
adversely affected by that. And
kinda-
you're absolutely right about there's nothing more important than face-to-face time with the teacher, as much of it as you can get.
when you lose the teacher, nothing happens.
That's
I mean,
right.
That's just how it.
I know, I was out today at a conference. I got the report when I got back.
Everybody? Anyone else?
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Mark. He's going to talk about science, which is its whole other situation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark Stravinsky, Science Coordinator. I'm here to talk about the student's favorite subject. If you don't believe me, just ask any kindergarten teacher or someone's mom. Science, like everything else, is in transition. We have new standards adopted, as I mentioned last year when we were talking about our MCAS results. We have new standards that were adopted in 2016. The state has given a 3 to 4 year transition for teachers to learn and adopt those new standards internally, for districts to plan and move forward with them. And by the 3 to 4 year plan, what I mean is up here, I'll show you that in grades 5 and 8, where the legacy MCAS test was, the grade 5 test covers grades 3 through 5, and the grade 8 test covers grades 6 through 8. But we don't get a test every year. We only get them on grade 5 and grade 8. The state has given 3 years, starting with 2016, 17. If you look on that graphic, it's a little small. But as last year, we're still assessing the old standards, even though we adopted as a state the new standards. But again, the transition to give teachers time to get up to speed, they're testing the old standards. This year, the MCAS test in grades 5 and 8 will cover a mix of old and new standards. And the state did actually come up with a document informing you which was which. So now teachers are scrambling, trying to figure out what was they teaching last year and what are they going to shift to. And then next year, we're on new standards only, right? Now, that's the same for the high school, but because the high school is the high-stakes competency determination, there's a 4th year that's being considered. Now, if you look at the 2018-19 on the bottom chart, it says TBD, right? Great information for us, to be determined. So what does that mean? The state is still discussing how they're going to roll out the next generation MCAS in science. We'd like to see some of the questions. They were supposed to be released after an assessment that was optional last year. And I was at a meeting a month ago and said those are going to be released anytime, and I check every day, and they have yet to be released because teachers just want to see what level are we supposed to be teaching for this assessment. So a little bit behind the 8 ball there. In terms of our transition, again, we have made some great strides already. In the elementary school this year, thanks to, I have to mention, the Gelfand Family Charitable Trust. They have given this district in excess of $400,000. And what that has done is it has funded our No Atom Science curriculum, finishing this year with grades K and 1, so we are now complete grades K to 5. Right? And if you want to see some excitement about science, I post pictures up on the McQuon site quite often. Kindergarten students walking around with pinwheels during the time we had the leftover remnants of the hurricanes. Perfect day to walk outside and watch wind. They were studying weather. Just very excited about using that and their tornado tubes, etc. But grades K and 1 are learning the curriculum. They just got it, and the curriculum is already kind of matched to the next generation science standards, which we adopted. Grades 2 has used the program for 4 years, but one of those years was under the old standards, so teachers had to adjust again. And then grades 4 and 5 got the program last year. So we're very excited about that, and teachers are excited about it and using it in the classrooms. In the middle schools, as you know, we adopted a new program last year. Starting this year at McGraw-Hill, we linked that with math. And the students, as Brian said, there's an online component to that. And if the teachers, thanks to the principals at the middle schools, we have Chromebook carts that teachers can share math, science, which is why Amy was complaining, because they don't have it in English. But the more devices we can put in front of students, the better it is. This program has this online component. Teachers are using it, and again, they're getting used to it. In the middle school, we shifted standards around, right? So I think I mentioned to you before, the standards are grades 6 through 8, right? That's the old legacy. So one standard was assigned to grade 6. In another district somewhere, maybe grade 8 took that standard. It was random. Well, under the new standards on the state, Grade 6 has their standards, grade 7 has their standards, grade 8. And it wasn't what we necessarily were doing before, so teachers are now relearning some new ways of what they've done. So a lot of change is happening. Some frustration, I won't say it's not happening, but we're working through that. At the high school, it is the course level exam. We are adjusting our existing curriculum to meet these new standards, same as before. Okay, results. So grades 5 and 8 science, again, as far as I know, we're still under the old headings, advanced, proficient, needs improvement, but I believe we're going to be shifting to the new labels because we kind of follow what English and math does. So there's going to move those again, and we're looking to push kids from red to blue. That's what we're trying to do, right? So both elementary and the middle school, we're just pushing kids. At the high school, it's a single test in biology. Here's a 4-year comparison. The students are doing very well. The bar to get your competency is very low for graduation. You need a needs improvement. So with our results here, I believe it's something 98% of our students are passing that. And we're doing very well here at the high school for getting kids through the MCAS hurdle, which gets them to their diploma. So moving forward, this is kind of the message we want to leave with you. It's critical to continue this K-12 curriculum alignment that we're working with. I know we're taking teachers out of the classroom, but I'm not sure how else to do that, because when you need the teacher and you are trying to get the same message across all 3, 4 elementary schools, you want all the people in place. Otherwise, you're playing kind of a telephone conversation. What was said, when was said? So we have to get the message out, and this, what we think is a pretty good system for what we have. It's working, but it is taking teachers out of the classroom, no doubt about it. But to continue to work with those teacher leaders and the staff is, we find it to be a crucial element to keep moving forward and address the many changes that are happening, not only in science, but in ELA math as well. Increased technology access. If you didn't get the message, here it is. We would like to increase technology access and training. You can't just give people devices, you need to train them how to use them. So we're looking for that with teachers and students. And finally, to continue to invest in curriculum resources. We, up until last year, we hadn't bought a middle school science textbook since 2002. So that was a huge buy-in, and the teachers really appreciate it. So now they have some resources to work with, but we're not done. The science, I'll just mention science because that's what I know. The science component has technology engineering, which is a hands-on piece. We're not quite sure how we're going to fit that into our middle schools because what that requires is tools. I mean, tools like hammers, screwdrivers, we just don't have that available right now. How do we fit that in? Again, we're not sure. But it also requires consumable materials, materials that need to be purchased for students to use to learn these engineering principles, science principles. And that's just in science, but we need things across the board. Question, please.
Anyone? Bob?
I'll just
Rob?
throw it, because I don't want to keep you guys all night long, because I could, with just so many questions. But if I could, through Ruth, if it's okay, reach out to the 3 of you and just 10 minutes with each of you, just so that we can talk more about, to try to help you guys out with what needs to be done. Sure. I mean, Chromebooks, absolutely. Professional development, try to help figure that out. So if you get an email from me or whatever, that's why. Okay. Spend a couple minutes to talk to you to
You're welcome.
try to help you.
Rosman, yeah.
I just want to summarize and thank, number one, the curriculum directors. If this presentation showed you anything this evening, it's how important their roles are in this district. They are so dedicated and they're so hardworking. And Kevin, I truly understand your frustration. As an elementary teacher, it was very difficult to leave the classroom. But the wonderful thing is that these curriculum directors do a lot of the data analysis and bring it to the teachers. Otherwise, it would just be overpowering for a teacher to go through all of the data that they need to go through. And at the elementary level, it's, it's science, math, English language arts. There is such a need for technology. And I think that, again, from this presentation, you can see the next generation MCAS. Not only is it very rigorous and extremely difficult, but it adds that component to computer expertise. And if children don't know how to navigate and children don't feel comfortable, then they can be extremely knowledgeable but not get their point across technology-wise. So I know it's a difficult decision for any district to be looking at the budget and to be making these huge commitment pieces, but technology is definitely something that we really have to focus on, especially with the new MCAS coming up. It's entirely different. I mean, when I started in Whitman as a fourth grade teacher, I did the old legacy MCAS, and it was creative writing. It was, the more you wrote, the wonderful it was. Now it's a completely different skill set. It's taking written word and internalizing it and composing a document that is well-written, that communicates your thoughts, and it all has to be done on the computer. It's extremely difficult, and it will take a while to get our students where they should be. But again, I want to thank the directors. They're incredibly hardworking and did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Peggy, yes.
Peggy?
How many Chromebooks do we have?
Yeah, Chad knows. Yeah, go ahead.
Obviously, we don't have enough, and I know Swan just did a fundraiser, and I know Beth's behind it. I don't know how many we get from
Sure.
that, but
Yeah, Chad knows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the most recent total, we just got, I think, 150 just for the high school as the part of the transition. So the total for the district for all the schools is roughly 1,500.
and how many kids do we have?
About 4,000. Yep, yep.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Pruitt, for Village Way in Whitman. I just want to echo
Rosman.
what you said about the curriculum coordinators. I think that their presentation is remarkable, and it just shows the type of support that we need in a district like this. So I want to thank them for their extremely thorough presentation, and also, as they're speaking their vision. You know, I think it's really important that they have that vision for where we should be. And I just wanted to respond to what you were saying about the actual new assessment. So if you what the state also put out was a wonderful visual of the NAEP scores. So the NAEP is our National Assessment of Educational Progress, which we use as our nation's report card. And Massachusetts recognized that their the legacy MCAS, the 20-year-old assessment, what was meeting proficient and advanced, was actually not comparing to our NAEP scores, the Massachusetts NAEP scores. So we were not competing internationally with our fellow peers. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I agree with what Brian said about that it is a better assessment for us. I also just wanted to talk just quickly about devices and the importance of them. Not just that our students need to know how to navigate them, but we're stopping them once they reach our doors. Our kids already know how to do this. They know how to read online. They know how to navigate the Chromebook. But when they enter our doors, and I'm not just saying here in Whitman Hanson, I'm saying in general, the educational system, we stop them from using what they know. So when we think about differentiated instruction, we really think about the universal design of learning, and we think about really meeting the kids where they're at. And the technology and the amount of devices is so instrumental in how we are going to get our students to really achieve success. And not just for testing, but to enhance their learning. They're doing all of this. They're leaving our schools and entering the world, really going back home, really learning on their own. And when they get here, they're forced to handwrite things. They're not doing that. They're typing it all at home. So some of that isn't matching. And so I just really encourage you, as you look at the budget, to really try and put aside money and funding for increased devices, because it is, or encourage kids if we can send our children with Chromebooks.
Well, I was just going to ask that question. Do we encourage students to bring Chromebooks or computers or whatever into classes to use them?
Chad, you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
In order for the Chromebooks, using the Chromebooks, we not only buy the Chromebooks, but we also have licensing, so we can manage and control the Chromebooks. So they can be on our network and gracefully go through the network to the internet, which is needed in order for them to actually be used, in addition to being able to manage like the apps and the things on them. So we not only just buy the Chromebooks, but we also buy the licenses for them. So if someone did bring one in, they would be, like, if you went to the store and bought one, you just bought one, we wouldn't have the license for it, and we would, if, it really hasn't come to that, I don't think, that people have been, our students have been bringing them in, but if they did, we'd have to figure a way to get additional licenses in order to add them on. So there's a few different considerations for that.
Okay, thank you.
There are ways that we could purchase, some licenses that it might be something to look at cost relative, because if anyone brings in a device, I mean, I purchased a Chromebook for my son for $140. You know, it was, he went from Conley Elementary School, where he was on a device constantly, learning how to annotate text online, and went to the middle school and didn't have the opportunity to use a Chromebook. And I bought him a Chromebook thinking, okay, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we need. And he didn't have the opportunity because the devices weren't there. And so that's the concern that I have. And he sat, and he wasn't as engaged. So, but thank you.
Thank you.
Dan?
Yeah, with the Chromebooks and all, it would be nice to give every child one, but we can barely keep teachers and classes in this district. So to get Chromebooks is like way beyond our scope. There's no money for teachers, for classes we need. The only way that's gonna happen is fundraising. The towns have shut down everything we've done to try to get this school up to where it should be. I mean, our main focus is probably, we need to get more teachers in here for the classes that have been eliminated over the last 8 to 10 years. And we all realized, every kid should have a Chromebook.
So then maybe we should allow our children to bring devices to school. I'll send my son the Chromebook tomorrow. That's something, because let us purchase it. It's that, that's something that we can do. Many of our children have the devices.
Because it is sitting here frustrating to see that you're giving MCAS and 30% of the kids are actually getting to utilize it. It's like going back to middle school where you need a Spanish class, but only, 1/4 of them can take it because there isn't enough teachers. That's pretty sad, where we went through school systems and you were having that in the middle school, no problem. You had 2 or 3 languages you could choose from. And times have changed, but technology, unless people are bringing them in, the towns have already shut us down so many times with everything. Just the struggle to get teachers back for courses is
Chris?
crazy.
So 2 things. So I appreciate Mr. Colletti's frustration. I share it. But at the same time, I think when we go through the budget process this year, perhaps we should think about having a line item, and we keep trying. And if the towns don't want to support it, then that's up to them, but at least we're trying. The second thing is, I would have concerns about individual parents purchasing Chromebooks, because again, we're creating a system of those that have the means to do it are able to, and those that are not are gonna get left behind in that process. So I think, we really can't lose sight of, let's get every child educated every day at the same level and not create that, I can buy the Chromebook, you can't, and it creates a problem.
Yeah, but if you let people bring their own things, then you would have to supply enough for the kids who can't, so that they could all have it, but you wouldn't have to get one for everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, they do that with band and stuff like kid can't buy an instrument, so we have one. But a kid who wants to bring his instrument can bring it, so that doesn't seem.
But everyone needs an instrument for playing the band, right? So to your point, I agree.
That's my point, is that you have enough to cover everybody,
Right.
but you don't, I mean, if you allowed people to bring it, sorry about that, if you allowed people to bring it, then you'd get further. I mean, you could close that gap.
Yeah.
Fred?
And sort of echoing Kevin, if we allow people to bring their own device, it reduces the burden on the district to provide. So perhaps we could end up finding that we're able to strike a balance. But going back to the licensing, what exactly do we need licenses for, and how much do they cost?
The cost of each license is about $24 to $25
Okay,
per device.
per device.
And that allows the device to be managed, because if you're managing, I mean, we have 1,500 right now, so managing each one individually in front of it would be very difficult. So the management of it comes from a software which is for the license, so you can manage them and push the settings for them, the apps that are needed for them, and access that they need in order to get out to the internet, and restrictions that need to go on it as well for things that they shouldn't be going on and things like that for now.
Okay, so would they be using the virtualization that we put in place?
No, it doesn't need to.
But could
it's-
it?
Yes, oh, definitely, yeah.
So if it could use the virtualization, you wouldn't per se need a license, but you'd still need to restrict the internet access? I just want to make sure I'm...
Yeah, no, they don't really go hand in hand. It's really the license is to manage a device itself so that you can make sure that it has the credentials and the wireless information in order to get out on the internet, and it has the apps and the things that it needs on there in order to be able to be used.
Okay.
All right,
So I
thank
want
you.
to thank our directors for their presentation. We also have the building principals here this evening. I don't know if any of you wanted to add anything more to the discussion in terms of MCAS, or ready to move on?
Okay.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Today, I had the opportunity, and this is really relevant to our conversation. Whitman Hanson was very fortunate to be invited to participate in what was called the OECD testing. And this is testing Whitman Hanson students by not state standards, not national standards, but by international standards. And 50 students, 15-year-olds, were chosen randomly last February to participate in testing in math, English language arts, and in science. And we've been receiving those results. At our January meeting, we're going to be bringing that information to you. And I think you're going to find it's very interesting in contrast to MCAS, because now we're looking at what students can know and are able to do, not based on Massachusetts standards, but on how they compare globally to other students. We were extremely fortunate. We were invited by the commissioner about a year ago to be able to participate in that. And this brings into play a lot of the things we've discussed today. One of the things we talked about today was the fact that teaching and learning in 2017 is very, very different. If you read on a device, iPad, Chromebook, laptop, it's much different than reading paper, reading print text. And in instruction, that's a different instructional strategy as well. If you've ever taken a test, an SAT, a GRE, on a computer as opposed to a paper and pencil and tried to write, you will find, even as an adult learner, that is an entirely different skill set. So I think we are experiencing a huge shift in teaching and learning. And I think the concerns you heard this evening about the need for one-to-one devices becomes greater every single day that we're in school. And this was the crux of our conversation just 2 days ago, or yesterday, I guess, at our leadership team as we bring the budget forward to you all. What do we really need for successful teaching and learning? So we're excited to bring the OECD results to you next month so you can see how that compares. And OECD really, I think, goes deeper than MCAS does, because one of the concerns with the legacy MCAS was it really did not predict career and college readiness. And that's really the next piece we're moving forward on, but very exciting. You received, school committee, you received a composite of information here, and that does include the enrollment report, and Chad Peters is going to update you on Whitman Hanson enrollment.
In the packet that you got, the first one is the Massachusetts Elementary and Secondary Education report. It's report number 5. That's the standard report that we get back for the October 1 submission of our data for our student information. That is the basis for our Chapter 70 funding through the state. So that's one of our more important data subsets that we send. This is the standard report that we report on each year. The few things that look a little different, they pulled some information off this year for low-income student counts as they've transitioned now to more state and federal reporting to do that, as opposed to us telling them how many students do we have, so you won't see that one on there. But it still has the the total enrollment, the gender, any specialty programs, ELL, special needs, Title I, 504s, attendance. So those are all on there, and as you can see, the enrollment counts by grade are in there, and those are based on our students that attend. It's one count per student that attends Whitman Hanson School, the 7 schools. So the ones that are missing off of that, these totals here are our outside placed kids, and there's 45 of those students. Any questions on that first sheet, the demographics from the state?
Kevin?
Is it just happenstance that the outside placement number is 17 for one grade? And it's no more than 6 in any other?
Which, are you looking at a different report?
Am I looking at the wrong?
Yeah, it's a
thing?
total. That's not a
Is that
grade.
adding up these ones on the other side? Because it could, I'm trying to follow this.
Oh, you
Is
want?
that not under 12?
Kevin,
I'm
you on
trying
this
to
one?
read the
You on
above
Excel?
total.
Yeah.
Isn't that each
First
grade?
page.
You on this one right here?
So the
It's on the first
first one,
First one.
am I not reading this?
It's on the first page.
It looks like 12th grade.
You go under 12th grade, right? And you have a number of kids.
Correct,
317, that's 12th grade, 12th graders we're talking about, right?
correct.
And then outside placement 17, that's 17 12th graders, is that not what that says?
That's 17, either 12th graders or SP, which are special ed students that are above,
Up to age
up to
22.
22.
Oh,
All
so
the way to
we
22.
still own them until.
You own them,
Yeah,
yes,
they're
absolutely.
22, so
Yeah,
that's
whether or
fine.
not
You're
they're
not
here or not.
just
So
looking at
that's always going to be
17
higher.
and 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
You're looking at a group of students from 17, 18, up to age 22.
Okay, okay, I understand, thank you.
Chad, I have a question.
Sure.
Duval had a 51 student drop.
Yep.
Correct.
We have any idea why?
Well, if you look at some of the higher grade levels, the total students in there, they're, each grade level's in, 100 to 200 students. As you go down into the lower levels, the Ks, the 1s, the 2s, they're all starting to be very small classes. Like if you look at that Duval, the K class is 61 students. The previous year is 72. And so they were a lot higher, and now every time that they roll off, you're getting a smaller class in, so you keep dramatically dropping the class size. Whitman is very transient, and so we get a lot of withdrawals and students coming in, but it's mostly the small kindergarten grades and preschool that roll through the grade levels. Because if you look at just the total grade levels, they're, the K level is 247, whereas our highest one is 8th grade, which is 342. So as from the 8th grade down, they're all starting to diminish, and as they start getting into high school and fall off, every grade level.
And it's attributed to low birth rate. Yep.
The boomers are gone, in other words. Bryn?
Chad, just out of curiosity, the split for full-day K, last year we saw a tremendous spike. What about this year? Has it held steady, or?
I can answer that.
Sure.
The numbers of full-day K continue to grow. Our half-day programs are significantly smaller, and that's been happening year after year after year.
So that was the first page. Then the next page is the breakdown of where all the students reside, breakdown for Whitman, breakdown for Hanson, Ponset, and then non-Whitman or Hanson students. For the most part, most students, if they go to a Hanson school, they're from Hanson, but we do have some that go in between for a lot of special ed students. And so this just gives you the breakdown, and then this is what Christine uses for the assessment for the towns. And then if you look at the bottom one, the non-Whitman or Hanson students, the high school is 50 students. Those are all of the school choice students. And then there's only one other student that's a non-Whitman or Hanson or school choice, which is a tuitioned-in special ed student from out of district.
So you have 51 school choice students, or 50?
50.
50.
Yep.
Yeah, that one other
Because
student.
the other 7,
One's in here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a special.
yeah,
So it went up
I
by 7
understand.
students.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out, it would be interesting to see the kindergarten numbers
We don't. Ours stay pretty steady. We usually maybe get one or two more who might have been in a private kindergarten, but typically, when we try to predict what first grade's going to look like, we come in pretty close. So most Whitman Hanson kids go to kindergarten here. Most of them go to full day. Most families pay the $3,200 tuition.
The last page is the, just an enrollment projection for next year. So what we do is we take our enrollment projections, move all the students forward, take in a few considerations of the students that go from 8th to 9th. We typically reduce it by about 60 students. That's about average over the last 5 years that go from 8th to 8th and don't go into 9th grade. They go to a private school or Aggie or OTEC or one of those. So we kind of use that as a gauge, but this kind of just shows that the overall enrollment will estimated to go down about 121 students. Again, so this year is 93. Next year estimated to be 120 or so students. And you can see the breakdown. It's a little off on the breakdown because we're closing McQuon, and then they're moving to other various schools. So the numbers look a little off when you see the changes. But this over the last few years, it's been a fairly close representation of what happens the next year. So it's a potential good guide for next year's planning for budgeting.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions for Chad? Anyone?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Chad mentioned, these numbers are extremely important to us as we move into getting the FY 2019 budget, looking at class size, looking at distribution of positions. Very important to pay attention to those numbers. As you know, North River Collaborative has reorganized, and I am now a voting board member, so I give the North River Collaborative report. And just a few things to highlight. We're very fortunate to be the beneficiaries of a Title III grant. This grant is to supply funding to support our English language learners. Because we have fewer than 100 English language learners students, we are not eligible for federal grant funding. However, North River writes grants on behalf of its member districts, and as a result of that, our 2 ESL teachers are able to provide additional support to our 30-plus English language learners in Whitman Hanson. Also provides money for parent meetings and professional development. So we're pleased to have that money. Also underwrites professional development for teachers who need to get training in sheltered English immersion. The other big issue that has come up at North River Collaborative is they are setting their budget for the upcoming fiscal year as well. They've determined that the rates for their programs are far lower than in many surrounding collaboratives, and we will be looking to see some rate increases for some of the services for North River Collaborative, so those are things we're going to need to take into consideration as well. They have also experienced a decline in enrollment in their programs. North River School, which you know is right over there on really close to here, it was in a church and has now been converted into a school, typically used to have 58 students in their North River High School. It's an alternative high school. They have 46 at this time. So that is a revenue consideration for them. It's also looking at school districts and seeing what type of services should collaboratives be providing that we can't provide. And many school districts now are beginning to bring programs back in district because they're able to meet the services and also because of the rising costs of special education. So these are pretty hard conversations that we have when we go to the board meetings in terms of what services should they be providing for us and what should we be using ourselves. And I know Kyle and I have looked at that quite a bit this year in terms of looking at budget and trying to be as efficient as we can. The other issue North River is grappling with is space. They were very fortunate in Whitman Hanson because we do have oversized schools for the number of kids who are in them in Hanson, that we were able to have 5 classrooms used by North River Collaborative at the McQuon School. Well, that's going away. This year they're using a classroom at Hanson Middle School, which we anticipate we will need to use next year because we have the 5th grade moving there. So they are in a huge dilemma in terms of space. This is the same issue for Pilgrim Area Collaborative and many of the others. And as recently as this afternoon, I heard from Steve Donovan, the executive director, wondering if we were going to have any spaces for them. Big concern for collaboratives at this time. So just as we're seeing a shift in education in public schools like ours, we're also seeing that with collaboratives as they begin to look at the needs of our students and what they should be providing. Probably one of the biggest ones and the greatest challenges we've had recently is social emotional learning and working with students who have significant behavioral concerns. And we're seeing those to be much more dramatic than they've been in the past. And now the collaboratives are beginning to look at how can they support school districts with providing strategies and maybe programs for students as well. So a lot's going on. I think we are in a big position of transition. So I will have their annual report for you at the next meeting. They didn't have that quite finished. So any questions about North River? They do still miss you, though.
I miss
They
them.
do.
I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. At our last meeting, we talked about the administration of Narcan. You all charged me to go back to our leadership team and talk about what our direction should be in the administration of Narcan. We've also worked with Kevin Kafka, who's here this evening, and Beth Stafford, and discussed what would be appropriate in the school system for the administration of Narcan, and have come to the conclusion that our nurses, it would be very appropriate for our nurses to have that available in all of our schools, and that our nurses should be trained in the administration of Narcan, and also certain building administrators. When the training comes about, it would be open to anyone who'd be interested in the training, but certainly not something that would be mandated or required for non-medical personnel or people who are not in administrative capacity. I think the next question for the school committee, because I believe there is support to move forward with this, is how are we going to fund it? So when we had talked to the chiefs, when they were here, they were talking about what the various costs are. Talked to Christine a little bit to see where that funding would come from. So I don't know, Robbie, do you have a sense of what the costs would be for Narcan? No?
I can tell you, at least for a citizen, over the counter at the drugstore, it's $80 for 2 bottles, which would be 2 doses.
2 doses.
I believe, Ruth, that when the chiefs came, they said if we had continued down this road, they would come up with a price because I don't know if the
Yeah,
word
they can do it a little better than that. yeah.
wholesale was used, but they got a different
Right,
pricing
I was thinking maybe
structure.
$40 was something
Yeah,
that they
that's
said.
more of what, in line with what I heard.
That's what I remember, yeah.
Because, you know, it's a municipal thing, and they had a different edge on it,
And
so.
looking for something that might have a little longer shelf life.
Exactly.
Because they really, hopefully, it's not going to need to be used, but you certainly don't want it to go out of date as well. So we are happy to move forward with that if that's the pleasure of the committee, if that administration works for you all, nurses, and then certain administrators would be trained in this as well. We will then look at funding sources and then contact our chiefs to see what we can do with it.
I think consensually, if we can we'll take a vote on it if you'd like for you to move forward, and that way you'll have some,
I'd be honored to make a motion to move forward in making the placement of Narcan in all school buildings as just described.
Great, thank you.
Second.
discussion? Yes?
I just want to reiterate, I just think that, you know, it's just we're in such a dangerous world, and through no fault of anybody, just through casual contact, people can be subjected to an opiate, and this can save lives, and it can save a 5-year-old's life. You know, because they were walking to school and they got brushed up against something, or, you know, God forbid there was a needle on the ground or something of that nature. I just feel it's very, very important, and time does matter.
Anyone else before we move to the vote?
Yeah,
Dan?
I wasn't here last time, but was it brought up, like, besides school nurses, when it comes to sports, because we have
Well,
a
our trainer is already
possibility-
trained.
training? All right.
She's been trained for the last 2 years.
Just because you don't know if you're
Yeah.
going to another
Yeah, Lexi was trained quite
facility, you
some
don't know
time
what's going
ago.
on there.
She's all set, yeah.
We talked about that, Dan, with coaches and with personnel that might be involved with any of that type of stuff, so. Anyone else? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
Okay, the next, if you recall, at the last school committee meeting, I announced that I would be retiring from Whitman Hanson Regional School District sometime early in the 2018-2019 school year. And Bob was going to look into what we were going to do about a search.
Okay, I've looked into, there are several different things that the school committee can decide what to do, and there's been a great discussion since Ruth's announcement at last meeting. And I know, I'll use the term lobbying, lots of people have been lobbied on what to do and how to do and where to go, whether it be from public or from within or without. But so I think it's imperative, because one of the things the school committee is charged to do is to pick the superintendent. So I'm going to, the reason we haven't gone anywhere yet is this is one meeting away. I've set kind of a timeline that I think we should try to adhere to somewhat. It's a little bit flexible, obviously. Everything has to be flexible. But bringing the first thing, other school districts, some other school districts have gone out and used Mass Association of School Superintendents. That costs between 20 and...
That's NESDEC.
Yeah, I know.
NESDEC's the one that costs, MASS. you
Right,
just put in.
MASS is free, it's
Yeah,
NESDEC.
NESDEC.
And it costs between $20,000 and $40,000 to do that. I know of a couple school districts, even one very local to us, that did it and picked a person from within after a lengthy thing. So your next option is to use School Spring and put ads in School Spring. It gets it out there. It gives everybody the opportunity to apply. I know that's how we did it. I've got minutes and from the last, for those that weren't around when Ruth was picked as superintendent and John McEwen was the superintendent, of how we did it. I pulled the original minutes and how we went about it, and it was very similar to that. So I guess before we get on the whole line of how we do things, the committee needs to decide whether they want to go out with spending the money or with just going with School Spring. What's your pleasure?
What was the
Mr. Boyce?
option with Mass?
It's not Mass, it's
No, it's NESDEC.
It's NESDEC, so Mass really doesn't have a...
No, if we let MASS know that there's a vacancy, they'll just post it.
Okay.
That's no big deal.
They
That doesn't
post it
cost
for free.
anything. Yeah, but, yeah, but
Yeah.
but NESDEC will, and yeah, those will start to cost money. Yeah.
So, Mr. Boyce, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Fred?
I would be in favor of us posting it ourselves and having the committee review applications, and
Let's get to the posting,
Then-
and then we'll go to what the
Okay.
committee's going to do.
but posting it on our own without paying any money to an outside source.
We already pay for School Spring, so it's
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
budget.
Chris?
Is the scope of the services provided by these consultants strictly the posting, or would they provide other guidance around the management of the process, compensation data,
That's why you pay
salary
for it.
analysis?
They
Are we
manage-
just talking about posting, or are we talking about the process?
They manage it for you.
Okay.
And bring it to you, and then the committee votes.
Yeah, this is what North River Collaborative did when they hired their executive director, is they brought a consultant in, the consultant organized the entire process, did everything, but that's when you start spending money. I think they spent about $25,000.
And being a
To do
part of
that.
that process, it
Yeah,
did
right.
work out really well.
Yeah, and they had to do that because they went through multiple searches that didn't work out.
Yeah,
So that was sort of a
exactly.
third-ditch effort for them.
So they,
Go ahead, continue on.
sorry, so they wouldn't necessarily make the selection, but they might do some
They don't make the
pre-screen.
selection.
So
No.
they would do pre-screening, they would manage a timeline, they would make sure that, there's a specific set of interview questions that we would participate in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You
things
might
like
still
that.
do your own interview questions. You
Great.
still
But they
do a
would
lot.
support the process.
You do a lot yourself. You still do a lot yourself.
Kevin?
I agree with Fred. I think we should post.
Well, we can go right around the table and then take a vote if you want. Chris? The question is, do you want to,
So my professional, my previous experience has been if you get the right consultants, they always provide the value that they cost. And I think, I don't know what superintendent salaries are across the board. I don't know the strengths of certain candidates that I'm sure they have access to. So I would be in favor of at least exploring and having a discussion around what is it that they would provide.
I think the discussion about the superintendent's salary is a whole different,
There's nothing to do with that.
yeah.
They
it's
wouldn't
com-
provide that service.
No.
So they'll provide compensation data,
It's up to you. That's what the
Got it.
school committee does.
but do they provide comp data as to what's out there?
What they will do is organize the process.
Okay.
That's what they will do.
Got it.
And they're
Mike?
very good.
We go with the Fred's post.
Yeah, just post.
Bob?
Yeah, I think the posting, because you really don't want to spend the money. I think if you post, you'll get the candidates that are interested. I think you'll get more regional candidates. I'm sure if you do, you'll get some in-house candidates. So probably just the regular posting would be adequate, I think.
Mr. Boyce?
I'll agree with the committee. I do like the NASDAQ approach, but it was my first time in. I was following in the shoes of Sue McSweeney, and, you know, she had chaired that, the board over there at North River, so but I'll go with along with the rest of the board.
Dan?
Yeah, just post, let us find it.
Robbie?
Spend 20 or 40 grand on Chromebooks. I'd rather do that. Being honest.
I tend to agree. It's going to be a little bit more tedious of a progress, but I'd rather spend the 20 or 40 on Chromebook.
Yep.
And the last time I was obviously on the committee, we had people from Florida apply. We had people from Maine
Still
apply.
happened with School Spring.
That's what I'm saying, with
Well,
School Spring.
Yeah, well, that wasn't it, when I did it, it was the Boston Globe in the newspaper. That's how long ago that was. There was no School Spring back then.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, but that's where we were with that. But it's equivalent to that. And this has a wide range. And I think if it doesn't work, you can always go to NASDAQ. What happened with North River is their first two searches didn't work, and the third time they went with NASDAQ. And they had changed their parameters a lot, so it's not even comparing apples.
yeah, it's a little bit different.
Little
And we can always go to it if we end up
Yeah, they'll take
with,
your money anyway.
with two applicants, and we think that we should change that process. I think we're going to end up with a lot of applicants. So consensually, we have that, but Fred, are you making a motion to?
I'm making a motion that we post the superintendent's position.
Second.
Post the superintendent's position. Okay? In a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, we're going to post it. So for any of those people watching, this is not, because part of what's been going on community-wise is a lot of people have said, oh, we're only doing an internal search, we're not going outside. You are hearing us loud and clear. We are posting this so anyone that is qualified can apply. So anyone that might be watching it, or anyone that's here, or might be seeing what we're talking about, if you have someone that wants to apply for the superintendent's position at Whitman Hanson Regional High School, we'll be posting it tomorrow on the 14th. So, having said that, the next question is, committee. This committee is charged to pick a superintendent. Now, do we want to have just the committee do the screening? Do we want to have a screening committee? There has been a tremendous amount of people that have come forward that said, if you have a screening committee, I would be interested in being on the screening committee. And they're all good individuals. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter about internal candidates, so there's been a lot of internal people that have contacted all of us to say, I would like to be on the committee. Or do we want to see how many applicants we get and determine if we want to screen them all and weed out what we can right from the top? We could take a Saturday, or I had a timeline of maybe running the ad from tomorrow to like January 5th. That gets it, because nothing's going to happen through the holidays. We're out of school for,
You can always extend it if you
Right.
don't get anything. Yeah.
see what we get by the 5th. and see how many applications we have. I mean, that gives us a little bit of time. It gives us 21
3
days,
weeks, yeah.
roughly 3 weeks. And if we have to extend it, we can, and then start reviewing the applicants, probably, the applications right around the 8th, give or take a few days. And then start paring them down and going the next week and the next week, and trying to come up with a superintendent by the end of January, the 31st. Just in that type of a timeline, so we're not dragging our feet, and we're moving forward with where we're gonna go with this process. What's your thought? I'll open this to the committee. Go ahead,
I
Kevin.
think it's the committee's job to do this. I think we should do it. We should be the ones to do the hiring process. That's what we do. It's our task to choose the superintendent. So, I mean, the community has already elected us to serve as the citizens. And then, so it's our job to turn and hire the superintendent. That this is what we're here to do. We should do it.
Fred?
And basically to mirror Kevin, it's our charge to hire and fire the superintendent as one of the first things. And I believe that it should be the entire committee, you know, to get together and go through every step and every process. And that way we all have our input.
Robbie, I'm gonna start with you on this side, seeing, you know, somebody's gotta be put on the spot.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, with us doing it. I mean, if all of a sudden we had 100 applicants, then we might need a screening committee, but I'd wait and see what comes in for application. I'll just throw it to you, Ruth. How many applicants do committees typically get for, so, district our size, or?
Well, let's
I know
say
neighboring
when we
communities
did
do it.
assistant superintendent, that's
Yeah.
the most recent one, when we hired Pat Dillon. We probably got like 25 on School Spring, but out of those 25, we had to look at licensure, credentials, so then there are a number of those that aren't really viable. So out of that, we probably had 10 that we thought were really viable, good fits for Whitman Hanson, and that's when we started to really look seriously at what we had. I don't know what you're going to get from this. I know that there are far more openings for superintendents than there are candidates for superintendencies.
Okay.
So I think you're going to have to wait and see what you get. But I think it probably won't be an overwhelming number by the time you get it.
Yeah,
You know,
I think,
we haven't, you know.
I
we
like your
haven't-
idea with the posting. I mean, one thing I would like to do, and I like what you're talking about for the end of January, if we can get somebody in place while we're still in budget season, so that they're not stuck with our budget in case they've got a different idea or something like that.
That's why the timeline, I figure
Yeah.
the quicker we can get someone on board, because the superintendent, the person you select to be the superintendent, there are a lot of things to take into consideration. Where the person's coming from. Some of the people that apply don't want districts to know that they're applying, so you have to do some of those interviews differently.
Yep.
I mean, there are a lot of other variances that go along with the superintendent search. This is not like a real easy task. This is going to be some 6 and 8 hour times. But to answer your question in above, I've got the minutes of what happened in 2008. We had roughly 20 applicants.
Okay.
And exactly what Ruth was saying, about 12 of them were applying for the sake of applying. They were not,
Not really qualified.
they couldn't do it, so.
Yeah, so it probably won't be that overwhelming. The other piece too is you also will have a vacancy for assistant superintendent, because we didn't fill Pat Dillon's position. And one of the reasons that I really decided to retire was I felt it was unfair for me, knowing that my contract went till 2020, to be the one to select the next assistant superintendent, or to be so critical in that role. It really needs to be a good match between the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. So for my, I really think, I'm not sure how much that person would be involved in the budget, because that person will have another job up until,
True. Yeah.
so that may not.
Very good point.
It depends on
Yeah,
who gets
very
the
good
job.
point.
But I think clearly for what the administrative team's going to look like, that's really important.
Yeah.
Because you want a good complement of strengths.
Yep.
going through the 08 minutes, Dr. McEwen reported the district received 9 applicants that were ready of schools positions after advertising in the Boston Globe, on the MASS website, and on the Whitman Hanson Regional School District website.
Same thing.
Yep.
So that's
Same
where we went the last time. Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to keep it in the committee, and like, you know, what Robbie was saying, too many, then probably open it up to whittle down the list.
Steve?
The committee.
Kevin? You've already said. Bob?
I guess I'm looking at it a little bit differently. I would like to see a subcommittee of this committee to do the screening process. I would like to see any in-house candidates to be on the list automatically if they're qualified. I think if we're going to do a superintendent, assistant superintendent, I think there needs to be a balance of a curriculum, person who's strong in curriculum, and a person who's strong in overall leadership, so that there's the balance that Ruth's talking about. That balance is there. I think the subcommittee should be able to screen, and then the full committee would interview and make a final decision.
Mike?
I agree the committee should be obviously the final say and the only vote, but I wouldn't mind seeing some teachers or some people from the community as part of this, because, I mean, they're obviously going to be a part.
Chris?
Yeah, interesting, we have this side of the table and that side of the table. So, I think, look, I'll support the will of the committee. So, I think everyone is in agreement, where there's clarity of the school committee's job is, job number one is hire and fire the superintendent. That's our charge. But I do think some consideration of a selection committee, and maybe we wait and see what the pool of applicants looks like. But I was originally thinking you might have a subcommittee of 5 school committee members and maybe 5 members at large, whose charge would be to really drive the timeline, make sure there's clarity around that interview process, what's happening, and then they would feed that into the school committee with 3 candidates to take it from there and really, at that point, take a top 3 and go at it. But you know, I can see both sides of it.
If I could just add something, I've been on a few committees prior to being here and where I worked before. And I think part of what Mike had to say and Chris is that even though we're choosing the superintendent, the staff has to be able to somewhat work with that superintendent as well. So I think there's going to be some input as to staff, as to looking at what the superintendent, how they feel about the superintendent. Not that they'll make the final decision, when we make the final decision, obviously, but I would like to see some input so that we're just not have blinders on and go for what we think is a superintendent. But I think there's got to be some feedback, because everybody has to work with this person. That's just my feeling, only because I was on the other side for a number of years, and I see that as some value.
Go ahead, Kevin.
My concern is that I think when you do the subcommittee, you basically farm out the deliberation process to the subcommittee, and it's usually mostly formality when it reaches the committee itself. I don't think the committee will be as invested in the process. Well, okay, those guys are taking care of it. They bring it to us. For the most part, we'll go with what you guys think, and that's sort of how it plays out at the committee level. And that's the downside of it. I'm not super against or for anything in particular here, but I see the downside there is that you don't really get that full deliberation process when it's a subcommittee steering everything.
Okay. And again, we're doing this committee-wise. We're going to hear from the audience in 2 seconds. How about thinking about this as somewhat of a compromise? If we look at how many applicants we have on January 4th, and then we make a determination if we want to impanel a subcommittee. If we get 4 applications, we're just wasting time talking right now. Okay? If we get 15 applications, we might say, okay, we need to pare this down. So the reason I put my phone on is I'm thinking the 4th, right now we could schedule a meeting strictly to talk about superintendent's search. It would be probably, I wouldn't see it as a lengthy meeting, but it will give us all the chance to say, hey, guys and girls, we have X amount of applicants here. Now what's your pleasure? Because we could have 3 applicants, we could have 50. I mean, to make that decision this evening, I think, might be a moot point. Just saying, so if the 3rd, I said the 4th, didn't I?
4th.
The 4th is a Thursday. If we set up like maybe the 10th or the 8th, we could meet on Monday night quickly.
Monday, then you'd know what you had.
We'll know exactly what we have, and we can also make the determination, hey, there's only 2. I'm just guessing. There's only 2. We might want to go with spending the money in redoing this or rerunning the ads to get more. But right now, we're speculating at large.
Which I will say.
One quick comment, I love the idea of having a separate meeting to kind of hash this out.
I want it one separate
Fantastic
meeting,
idea.
nothing else on the agenda. That way we can devote all of our time to it. You're not running late. If you're running long, you can say, hey, guys, this was what we're supposed to be doing. And not, not diluting it at all.
Yeah, going about the right way. Yeah. And I do agree with what Bob said, as I sit here and think about it. I mean, that does make sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi again. Chrissy Pruitt, on Whitman. In respect to your comment about that we voted for you, we voted for half of you. We didn't vote for all of you. So I just want to put that out on the table. But I also just want to note that this is the most important job in the district, period. I'm very emotional about this because I think that it is an extremely important position. You will not get 4 candidates. You will get many more. The searches right now, the people aspiring to be assistant superintendents or superintendents is growing. In the position that I just received, which is an assistant superintendent position, there were 90 applicants. So I just want to put that out there. And the district that I left as assistant superintendent, there were also 85 applicants. So, and that was a regional district, much more complicated than Whitman Hanson. So I just want to start off by saying that. No, and I mean that because there's 4 school committees. I can talk to you about that.
Bigger region.
Yes. We are in such a crucial turning point in education and what our children are going through. I think that we really need to create a profile of the type of superintendent that we are looking for. Ruth has done a phenomenal job in her time here advocating for our district. And I think it's crucial to think about what is to come and what changes are to come and who's going to be able to lead our district through that. I think that having other voices on the panel besides the school committee members is extremely important. Like you said, and again, the subcommittee. Obviously, the school committee, I know and recognize you have the ultimate say in the hiring process. But you'll hear aspects from education for things that you don't know about. For example, I approached 2 of the school committee members from my town when I saw them, and I pointed out a statistic that is crucial to the success of our district that they didn't even know about. You know, when our middle schools, both Whitman and Hanson, 2 years ago, were in the bottom 27% of the district, our school committee members didn't know about that. Those are things that other members in the community will be able to share with you as we create who are we going to look for to guide us to that high achievement level that we know our students can obtain. I'm extremely passionate about this because this decision is so important. And it's so important to carry on not just the work that Ruth has done for our children, but also to bring us to that next level. We are in the process right now of losing children. I'm in the community. My friends are talking about which schools they're sending, which high schools they're sending their children to because of rumors that are out there. We need a superintendent that can unify both towns and really help keep the kids in district recruit the kids that from the district to stay here. As a taxpayer, I don't want to have to pay $26,000 or however much it is now to send my son to BC High. I believe in public education, and I also believe in a due process. And I ask you, to the school committee, don't just do this as an easy process, but our children deserve the best. And if it is somebody from within, then we vetted the process, and everyone was able, it was transparent. So I just want to say that because I think that this is so important. Our administrators need to be part of this process, our teachers, parents, and community members. Thank you.
Kevin?
Hi there. I would certainly echo that and love to assist in any capacity I can. I think it would strengthen the process to have as many stakeholders as possible involved, and certainly get the fact that it is the school committee's purview to hire, but to be able to have that input at various levels, I think is key to the process, and would strongly encourage you to consider that. Now, to the extent of what that would look like, a certain, a percentage of parents, maybe even students, teachers, et cetera. I mean, that would be up to you, but definitely need to include that in the process. So,
I agree also. That's why I sent my email.
Hi, Jill Kane, Whitman. I think Chrissy, I couldn't say any more than that, but I guess I'm just sort of thinking how when Beth was hired as principal of McQuan School, on that committee sat a parent, a teacher, an administrator. So if we're doing it for principals of schools, I don't understand why we wouldn't do it for the head of the entire district.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Bob? I agree with that, because I feel as though that you need to have input, because as they mentioned before, and I believe it strongly, is that you need a strong person in the community, and you need someone who everyone can get along with. And not necessarily have to be the most popular person, but they certainly have to promote a positiveness of the school district. And sometimes we can sit here and be sort of looking at one thing in particular, but someone from the Teachers Association might be looking at something else. A parent might be looking at maybe communication between the schools, the PTOs, the principals, the communication and so forth. I think it's a very involved process. I think we all look for probably the best person possible for the job, and I think we will know that when we go through the candidates. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint who that may be, but sometimes someone walks through the door and you say, oh, okay, that looks like that could be the person. We all might have this grandiose ideas who's going to walk through, but sometimes you can make that connection, and you can see that person, wow, that person will really rally the community together. It's a good educational leader, and then the assistant superintendent's job would fill in whatever qualities that you think you need to continue on. For example, like curriculum and of that nature. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I've always looked at it. And I've been on a couple of those committees, and it seems to me you don't have to have 50 people on the committee, because if you have educator, a parent, or someone like that, it kind of, the word's going to get out, but that's the committee. And then when the names come in, then I think it would be basically the school committee obviously has to make that decision, but there's a great amount of input as to maybe whether they recommend 2 people, 1 person. It depends on what that subcommittee, I think the subcommittee is a key part to this. That's how I feel personally.
Can I just ask, it sounds like one vision of the subcommittee is to get like representatives, like, so school committee voices, teacher voices, that kind of thing, and those people have to
if you get 30 people to whittle it down to who you think are the best 3 or the best 2.
Yeah, and another vision I think I'm hearing is a expansive thing, like, let's get all these different people, plus school committee, plus this and that, and it's starting to get really big, so.
No.
I guess, I'm just trying to picture.
I mean,
Who do we actually, how do we want the decision to be made?
Well, I think the next meeting would be a critical meeting, but the way I would look at it is you might have one representative from the Teachers Association, maybe a parent-teacher. I mean, you basically have two towns, too, so I don't want to make a committee of 50, but I think you've got to sort of decide, we have to decide what do we think would be an appropriate size, and who would be beneficial to be on that committee. I mean, we're just kind of throwing things out now, but.
Next meeting. That's why I always like sitting across from Bob Trotter.
It's not a good thing all the time.
Nah, it is. After listening to Bob and his experience with it, I agree. Now, what the numbers would shake out to be, I have no idea. And I would actually defer to you because you've been through it before, Ruth and the chairman, because you've been through it before. But from hearing that, how many? 90? 90. Yeah, so there'll be more than 4. But I mean, depending on how many apply, then at the next meeting, we decide, I guess, what the scope of the subcommittee would be, as far as how many, and it is 2 towns, so a couple from one town, a couple from the other town. I already see the fight on school committee is gonna happen like it's already happened with a couple of subcommittees. Everybody's gonna wanna be involved. But yeah, I mean, next meeting, I agree. Make up that, whatever that number would be, and however many applicants from that subcommittee get brought before us.
Yeah, because we have to look at a superintendent who has to work with
Everybody.
the town of Hanson,
Yeah.
the town of Whitman,
And
the
they're
town
two totally
manager, the
different
treasurer. I
towns.
mean, there's a whole complex there that
Personalities and everything. It's
you
totally
have to
different.
take a real, like, global view, look at.
Yeah.
If I could add, what we found has worked well when we were hiring an assistant superintendent is that we had, you can call them a screening committee, search committee, whatever, and it was a composite of stakeholders. And we did it when some of these folks who are here today, principals, it was a mix of people. They would then recommend 3 candidates to me as superintendent. So it's an efficient way to do that, and you really want to have representative stakeholders doing that. So you'd want to have a couple of school committee members. You wouldn't want, don't get a quorum or you're back
Right now,
where you
I know
were
exactly
with
back
the
to
other.
all the things.
And then other
Right.
represent,
Yep.
and that has seemed to work quite well.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then 3 would come forward, you do site visits, move on from there, you know.
Fred?
I would think that you, and this is just my personal opinion, is the screening committee, if that's the purview to call it, should be open to every school committee member that wants to be on it. Everyone that wants to participate should have that opportunity to participate. I think it would be very wise to see what we get for applicants and, perhaps, decide which way we go. I can understand getting some input from different professionals and different stakeholders, and I would think that the committee would be wise to perhaps be able to listen to, some input. But the committee's going to make the decision, and it's going to be up to, the school committee. But I think it should be open to everybody that wants to participate from the school committee, and then perhaps we identify some stakeholders. So then by January 8th, I believe you mentioned as a date.
Well, I think on the 4th, we should look at the applications, see how many we've got, then make the determination what we're gonna do, and then have,
You really can't deliberate.
right,
So you probably need to set a meeting for that Monday.
Right, that's what
I
I'm
would-
saying.
You've got to
Set a
avoid
meeting for the 8th.
deliberating.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, understood.
yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
everybody,
I'd say set a meeting for that.
before I get to Peg. Anybody else? I'll go after her. Go ahead, Peg.
I just wanted to say, the last time I sat on a committee, and I think there's someone new, I taught for 39 years, and we had a small committee that first of all went through the applications, because if you've got 90 applications,
You gotta weed
you don't
them
want the whole committee going through the applications. And you need people who have a time who have the time to commit to this. In addition to this, I'm sure most of you have full-time jobs, blah, blah, blah. So when you pick that committee, it's got to be people that can sit down, look at the applications, and maybe even do the legwork to find out if the certifications are up to date, if they've done this, if they've done that. So that would be, the first step. If you do get 90 applications, we'll see. And then bring a certain number, are the ones that pass through the first stage, the second stage, the third stage, bring those forward.
I agree. Everybody else?
Can I just clarify, it was 90 applications for assistant superintendent, so I don't want everyone.
Oh, no, that's okay, yeah, no, no, I get it, yeah.
Superintendent's a
Oh, yeah.
lot bigger job.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
I
Still a
agree.
lot. It's
Now,
still a lot.
I agree kind of with what everybody said, and I'm not just agreeing with you all to agree with you. And I've seen, Bob, what you're talking about. I totally agree. But no matter who you hire, there is no guarantee that this person is going to do what Chrissy said or what anybody on this board said. It could be the worst person in the world. You could get sold a bill of goods.
I've seen
So,
that, yeah. I've seen it, yeah.
right. So you'll agree with that.
Yeah.
So we need to be, this is probably the most important job in both of these two towns. You also have to take into consideration, you can hire the best superintendent in the world, and if they don't like the way the budget process goes next month, we're hiring the next one. So part of your speech, Chrissy, I wish you would get up at the Whitman Town meeting and say exactly what you just said to us, because funding, whether it's for Chromebooks, employees, or to drive this district to where it needs to go right at the highest point it can go, can't go there without dollars and cents.
I'll go to Hanson too and sit in the private section.
So I think all of that's relevant. I really do, and I love everyone's input because, in my opinion, it's the most critical job in here. It's what's going to lead, the person that's going to lead this district into the next few years of what's going on. There are several jobs to superintendents that there's interns in, so I want everybody to know that. How many are there? There's quite a
I
few.
don't know, quite a few.
There's quite a few where there are intern superintendents, when no one applied, nobody wants the job. I mean, Chrissy, you're shaking your head and you know you're an assistant.
No, I'm shaking my head because I know that they're interims because they're waiting for the good timing to hire the right person.
That's exactly
Right now
right.
is the time to post.
That's
I know
exactly.
a lot of the candidates that are out there, and they're phenomenal, but they're already interviewing for other positions.
Exactly.
And that's where some of the interims come in.
Yeah.
And I also just want to note that, as far as, I just lost my train of thought. How crucial this position is, I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry, I don't want to hold you, you continue.
That's okay.
I'll think of it.
No, but I think she brings up a real accurate point, that the reason you'll see interim superintendents, it's because when folks decide they're going to leave, or it's decided they're going to leave, or they retire, if the timing doesn't work, you run into this, which is one of the reasons I decided to tell you as soon as I did. I didn't have to. I have to give you 90 days. I didn't do that, because I felt you really want to be able to start a school year with someone, and someone who's in that cycle. So I think now's the time to do it, and I think it's important to remain focused on what your process is going to be so you don't lose a lot of time. Because the closer you get to the end of the school year, it's not going to be as good. It is, yeah.
It has to be.
If you end up, that there's a reason you have to post 45 days before you hand out pink slips, for one reason, for teachers.
Yeah.
Same, the closer you get to the end of the school year, the more
The
difficult
sooner you
any
can
position.
figure out what you're going to do, I think.
I did just remember the process too is a very long, complex process, but again, that's through the
Right, there's
process.
a reason for
And
it.
makes it very transparent. For example, I personally went through 3 sets of interviews. First with the screening committee, where they interviewed, multiple, maybe I think 20 people from the list of 90. Then I met individually with the superintendent again, because I was the assistant superintendent, that was my second interview. And they narrowed it down to 6 finalists, or semi-finalists, and then they put forward 4 finalists to the school committee. And so they went through a multiple tiered process that ensured that they were, and one of them was internal, and so it ensured a really thorough process to make sure that all the different aspects were noted. There was somebody from FinCom on it, not just, school committee, but FinCom, also the teachers, president of the teachers union, parents, so that, but again, I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Small, about how anybody from the school committee should be on that initial process if they want to, because obviously you can oversee the process if you're not
not hiring an outside agency to do that.
There's also one more thing, and then we can move on, because it looks like you're gonna vote to go for the 4th and see what we have. You also have to take into effect, we might have 10 internal candidates. So now, some of them become finalists. Do you actually want internal people making the discussion of who's going to be the next superintendent? So that's another whole process, because I sat on a committee, and I won't discuss where, and 2 of the people on the committee were 100% already picked the candidate. We had 5 meetings, and these 2 people were just sitting there going, and when it came out and their candidate didn't get picked, there was an issue. So consequently, I think we need to go to the next step. And I'll let you guys, this committee is, I said I was gonna bring this forward and let the committee decide, because it's very, very important. Yes?
Originally, I was opposed to having any outside influences. After hearing Mr. Trotter, I can see the value of getting some advice from people, and from people that have been through a process, from other stakeholders, perhaps from the union. But at the end of the day, I look at it as being our decision. Could we impanel a parent representative, a union representative, an outside resident representative, but have them as quote-unquote advisory positions on the committee? They wouldn't have a vote,
They have no vote, they can't have a vote anyway.
but they would just be able to share their opinions and advise us.
That's what a screening committee would do.
Yeah, that's exactly what it'll be.
You know,
Would you
so-
go, would you go with something like, one MTA, 2 parents, 1 from each town, like town managers, if they wanted to, 2 principals out of the district, and maybe the curriculum leadership? Something like that, that gives you pretty broad.
Yeah, you
Go
want
through the
it like
selection.
9 to 10 people.
Screening
You know.
committee.
When we get too much bigger than that, nobody gets to,
You don't get
have
it
a
done
say.
anyway.
Okay, so is everybody comfortable with seeing how many applications we get, and on the 8th, making this decision?
Yes.
Yes. So meetings on the 8th, Bob? Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
Meet on the 8th, or?
Yes, 8th of January,
6 o'clock? How about 6?
6 o'clock, right here.
Sounds great.
You'll probably have to go into executive session,
We
because there
will.
may be applicants who don't want their information.
In previous interviews that I had done on a screening committee, and I was, actually, I think I was still the chair back in those days, there are going to be applicants that do not want to be disclosed who that they are. So we'll do it in executive session, just for the fact of protecting, they've already got jobs, they don't want other places to know. I mean, eventually it comes out, and you have to tell them that through the interview process, you happen to be one of the last 5, I'm sorry, we're doing a site visit, do you want to withdraw? And you have to give them that opportunity. But in the very beginning, sometimes secrecy to them is much more important. Do you find that, Bob?
Yes, certain issues, yeah.
To a certain extent. I mean, I saw it the last time when we did yours. So, okay, I'll entertain a motion then.
So moved
Second.
What's the motion?
to meet on the 8th of January.
To review how many
review the
applications we
applications.
have and make a determination on a committee?
And to make a determination on the direction of the committee.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. And again, anyone that might be watching or looking, this is a search for a superintendent that is not just internal, it's open to everyone that would want to apply that is qualified to be a superintendent of schools. It is completely open to everyone, and get your thinking caps on, because you might want to be on a list of people to end up on the search committee. We may have more people for the search committee than we have applied for the job, because after everybody that I've spoken to, I know of about, I've got a list already of 30 people.
It's close to 90 for that.
And thank you, everyone who talked about this, because it's vital to the communities, and it's vital to this committee to get your input, and we value it. So thank you. Okay, next.
Okay, so We wanted to give you just a quick update on where the budget is for FY 17-18. We don't have a formal budget report this evening, but I did ask Christine just to give you sort of a check-in as to where we are, and then in January, we'll have a more full-fledged report.
Right, so, right now, we're keeping a obviously, real close eye on the budget. It's becoming extremely tight. We've actually, Ruth and I have talked about maybe freezing the budget sometime in January, after we get through the first of the year. The other thing is, DESI has made some changes to how we do the end-of-the-year report, starting in 2018. So we've adjusted some of those account numbers to reflect what the change is gonna be when we go to do the reporting. So, sometime in the near future, either January or February, I will be coming, asking you for, some transfers, which is just the typical transfer where the money's going from one account to another, to reflect the changes, that DESI has put forth to change in how we report on the end of the year. The other thing is, as of right now, we have 9 people retiring. And the other thing that we've talked about, I know this is a policy for the policy subcommittee, but we're having difficulty with the substitute list, and we haven't talked about increasing our daily rate for our subs for quite some time. It's been at $75 for
At least 2005.
At least 2005. We're right in the median. We've looked at surrounding communities. So I'm not sure if there's just on a big candidate substitute pool, or it's because we are slightly below surrounding areas. So just wanted to bring that to your attention, that maybe that's what's set in policy, so it's not set here, so.
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at, the policy subcommittee is going to meet again in January, and we've looked at our substitute policy, and this has come up in negotiations, what constitutes a long-term sub, a permanent sub, a daily sub, trying to look at that. There was an analysis done of substitute rates in southeastern Massachusetts, and what we pay is what everybody else does. But if you look at $75 a day to teach in the public schools, you can make more doing things, other things. Now, Braintree pays a little bit more. I think they pay around $90 a day. One of the things I want to do is check and see if they're having as much trouble getting subs as we are. I think there is a low applicant pool as well as low pay. But as we look particularly to next year's budget, I think that's a consideration we really need to look at, because this is a everyday problem. Our principals are here, they will tell you that. They are having a very difficult time finding the coverage that they need, and it's a big problem. So it's very likely we do need to up the rates for subs.
If anyone has ever subbed, I know, Ruth, you have.
I have.
I have, and maybe other people have.
It's one of the hardest things I've ever done.
$75 just doesn't make it anymore.
Nope. No, it's very challenging work. We want qualified people there, and it's been just every single day. During the recession, we were in good shape. People needed jobs, and that looked pretty good, but we're not there anymore, and it's a real problem. So we're going to be bringing that to you as well.
Okay.
And then the next piece we wanted to talk to you about, and this has come up in multiple conversations this evening as well, is looking ahead to the FY19 budget. And a couple of things, I've asked Christine to project things she knows that are already increases. As you know, we had 2 meetings, one in June, one in early October, bringing in the FinCom selectmen from both of our towns, trying to talk about how do we fund the school districts with what I think we need to be able to move forward. To me as superintendent, it's an ongoing frustration, especially when I hear the comments about technology, but we have other frustrations as well, and one is no-cost full-day kindergarten. I started working on that in 2000, wrote a grant for it. School committee at the time was not able to find the funding to do it. Here we are in 2017, one of 15% of school districts in Massachusetts that are still requiring families to pay for full-day kindergarten. And I think we need to go to you as the school committee, and as we build the FY19 budget, what do we do about that? We know estimated costs in order to implement are around $400,000. Did the numbers last year, it's still pretty close this year. And our biggest problem is that we have a revolving fund that comes from kindergarten tuitions, and we use that money to pay salaries of some of our teachers in kindergarten and some of the paraprofessionals. So as long as we're dependent on that for funding, we can't cut ties with funding for kindergarten and having tuition. So Christine and I have talked about it. I'm going to ask her to tell you a little bit about what our thinking is.
Well, first of all, the money that is brought in to the full day K revolving can only be spent on full day K, nothing else. So that's salaries, supplies, paraprofessionals. Can't be spent for anything else. So there has been, over the past few years, some surplus that we've been able to keep the teachers in positions by using that money to fund more teachers for full day K. So Ruth and I have talked about this, and if we can maybe roll this out over a 2-year period, and next year put some of the teachers or the salaries back into the operating budget and leave a surplus in there to be able to start the startup cost the following year. Put the rest of the salaries back into the operating budget, and we'll still have a surplus to be able to, for the startup cost for free full-day K.
Because we would have to outfit classrooms a little bit more than we've had. So we looked at it as a 2-year rollout, but this year's budget, FY19, would see a bump because we'd be weaning ourselves off the revolving fund. It's the only way I think this is going to work, unless we just straight up put it in the budget and hope for the best. But the budget's going to be up, and we always have a revenue problem. So just wanted to get your thoughts on it, or if you want to go full force and try to implement for the fall, we need to start talking about that now.
How much do you usually get in the revolving?
About 100,000? What do you have in the revolving?
Oh, right now, about 100,000. That's taken into consideration that we're paying the salaries out of it, too.
I think it's something, go ahead, Fred.
What's the impact after the initial startup? Once, assuming Chapter 70 remains somewhat flat?
The program is about 800,000. So we'd have to, so that's why we're talking about doing a 2-year implementation, because we can absorb the teachers that are currently paid out of
Stagger
how we pay out of that revolving account. So we take part of the salaries that are paid now and put that back into the LEA operating budget and be able to still charge tuition next year. And then the following year, do the same thing, right? Put almost all the teachers back into their operating budget, and then we will still have a surplus in that full day K revolving account to be able to fund the startup of free full day K.
You're still gonna be like 200,000 if I do the math right. That's, we better look at what the budget's gonna be, what Chapter 70 does, what our E&D looks like, because we've been hitting E&D too much.
I'm gonna talk about that.
Right, I know that's next, that's what I'm saying, and
Yeah.
and if we keep talking about budget and revenue and shortfalls, there won't be many applications for the superintendent's job.
Right.
The other piece is, we can stagger it over 3 years. I mean, but I do think sooner or later, you got to get there, because we can't be the only district charging tuition.
Bob, I've been a proponent of this for quite some time, since I've been on the committee as well. And if we can get it in that way, I would be all for it.
Stagger it out over 3, maybe you need 3 years, given the,
I mean, if it's,
I don't think Chapter 70 is going up.
no, I think it's something we need to do. I agree with you, it's long overdue, and if we can get it in that way,
Stagger
once
it
you
in.
get it in, you're all set. It's, we've never been able to push the door open to get it in, but this sounds, I feel a little more optimistic about it. If it may take an extra year, but,
Stagger it in.
yeah, I'm all in favor of that, if that's the best way it's gonna work.
Go look at the numbers.
Fred?
I'm just trying to think of the best way to make this work and how it could work. If we stagger it in other words, right now we receive for Chapter 70 funds half per student,
Roughly, yep.
roughly. And our assessment to the towns, is that half per student as well? Is it broken out, or is it just, it's just a whole, just a whole dollar amount?
For every person.
For every person?
Right.
Okay. So theoretically, we would receive an uptick in our Chapter 70 funds.
I don't think so.
No, they told us we wouldn't.
They told us we would.
Well, if you're only receiving half because they're going to half-day kindergarten, you're not receiving the full amount when you receive.
On a full person.
They're gonna decrease it because they're not hitting the
Target
minimum
share.
target share.
Target share.
It always comes back to that target
It's the
share.
target
Not
share
gonna
that
get
counts.
Which is
anything.
why when
Well-
Rockland implemented, I talked to John Retchless, it sounded wonderful, we were going to do this, called Desi, talked to Roger Hatch, and he said, no, Rockland meets target share, you don't. And you get so much Chapter 70 to begin with, that if we give you even more Chapter 70, you're going to have an even more difficult time reaching target share.
But wouldn't you get the minimum per pupil the following year? I'm just talking
It
the
makes
minimum, I'm
sense.
talking
It
that.
makes sense,
It
but no,
makes
because
sense,
we're,
but they told us no.
we're not at target share.
Not a target share.
Because we thought we had it all figured out, and we
2 years
didn't.
ago, they came in and basically said, you're getting nothing again until you get your target share.
Exactly.
That's what they told us.
Point. So until the towns get us up there,
Yeah.
We
This
get
is this
penalized.
dependency on
I guess
Chapter
this is
70,
where
it's a big problem.
We have to go with the recommendation of administration as to what do we prioritize? Do you prioritize full-day K? Do you prioritize reading and
They're all
math
priorities.
specialists?
Well, yeah, we can give you a huge list, absolutely, yeah.
I hate to rush this along at this late hour, but we've got a lot to do. And I think we really need to move that discussion closer to when we get a budget and see how far off we are. I mean, I love the implementation part of it.
I just wanted to bring it to your,
No,
bring it to your
I
attention tonight, so
understand.
we,
I understand. But I mean, I hear, and I think everyone on this committee hears that they're more interested in smaller class sizes and this and that, and you know, we've got to take it all into consideration. I'm with Bob, we tried to implement this and with everybody, the whole
Yeah,
committee.
there's just a lot, yeah.
So I think that's a discussion for when we figure out what the
Yep.
dollars are.
And January, we'll have more information on the budget as well.
Any questions for Ruth? Chris, you had a question?
I was just wondering if, I'm sure you've already thought of this, that using some savings from teacher retirements to kind of shift some of the kindergarten teacher salaries.
Right.
Portion that
Yeah,
is
we
would
have-
reduce the cost savings.
we do that every single year.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just have a couple more points to make.
Go ahead.
So, the other thing that I do know is the transportation contract is up by 4%, which is $65,000. We just found out that the Plymouth County assessment, the unfunded liability, is going to be up by just over $59,000. I do not know the GIC assessment yet, but I can tell you that we had 11 people retire last year, so that's definitely going to be going up by how much, I don't know.
Yes?
I can't guess, because the GIC has not set their rates yet.
Oh, okay.
In January, they'll give me a pretty
As
good
of the
estimate.
old rates?
The rates of GIC was 85.15, so. But their programs and what they offer are totally different than what we offer our current employees, so.
Okay, all right.
The other thing, too, that I just wanted to bring to your attention is we've talked about the enrollment, and I have mentioned a couple of times, but Whitman's assessment share now is 59.82%. Hanson's is 40.18%. So the swing is just under 55,000 to Whitman increase and just under 54,000 for Hanson. I thought for planning purposes that was something that I needed to speak to, so.
Thank you, Christine.
I think Whitman will be happy to hear that it's only 55,000.
Yeah, it's only a swing of 0.27%.
Good. Okay, thank you very much. Old business, before we go to the McQuon closing date, I have old business, even though it's not on the agenda, it's from last week. We received a letter, Mr. Trotter received a letter from the food pantry, and they were here, and we just somehow didn't get it in, and it's a good feel letter, I'm sure, so.
Yes, the last school committee, when Bruce Perry and Lauren Kelly were here, and they received that donation, they saw the agenda, it's quite lengthy as it was tonight, and they felt as though that they would just say, thank you very much, and then scoot. They didn't want to hold things up. And so they sent me a letter to read to the school committee to make sure it gets into the records, and I will hand this to you when I finish. To members of the school committee and administrators, this is an open letter to express our appreciation to the students at Whitman Hanson who have supported the St. Vincent de Paul Whitman Food Pantry. We would like to acknowledge all the programs, events, and fundraisers which have been organized to benefit the families of Whitman. Our involvement with the schools has evolved over the years. It started with the simple school project of collecting food for the pantry, and it has grown and grown to truly make an impact on what we're able to do to change how we service and care for families. Here are some of the programs that you have initiated. Elementary schools collecting items year-round. Middle school collecting items whenever there's a dance. Elementary schools organizing Thanksgiving baskets. High school generating the Miles for Meals with a monetary donation to support a number of projects we have at the pantry. High school culinary arts program baking cookies for the holidays so that they can be distributed to families. Youth groups and sports teams coming to the pantry to clean shelves and make sure that all our items are up to code. Our hope is that each time a student supports the food pantry, they file that activity in their brain so they can reflect on what they did to help others during their school years and will carry on through to adulthood. We hope that their acts of kindness will be multiplied as each one of them goes out into the world and gives of themselves to help others. We hope to have offered them a number of teachable moments because we are truly touched by all the good work that is being done by them. Much gratitude to the administrators, teachers, and parent organizations who have made it possible for the children to participate in such wonderful expressions of reaching out to help others. Thank you for your attention, members of the St. Vincent de Paul Whitman Food Pantry.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
You're welcome.
Thank you to all the students of this district. How proud are we of them for helping out year-round for such a worthy cause. It's just wonderful. It's great. And the volunteers that are all adults that are doing it. So that's great. That's awesome. McQuon closing update.
We talked about this at length during the Facilities Subcommittee meeting, and what you have in that packet of information that had enrollment in it, you will find 3 pages. And the first page outlines in 4 categories the estimated costs for the closing of McQuon Elementary School. The second page, which I also think is very important for you to look at, are the estimated potential savings of closing the McQuon Elementary School. And Christine looked at those pieces in terms of no longer needing SJ services to clean a building, utility costs, general maintenance, and insurance. The next thing that's below that is a list of items that were on our capital matrix that would be removed with the closing of McQuon School because those items would no longer need to be addressed. And that comes to the amount of $4,336,117. And then the third page, which we thought was really helpful for everyone to look at, or what does it cost to keep McQuon up and running for the last 3 years? And these are, in many cases, emergency repairs, a variety of things that had to happen, asbestos removal. You may recall there was a major leak from the boys' restroom on the 2nd floor to the 1st floor, lower level at McQuon. And so in that period of the last 3 years, over $500,000, $554,781.13 has been spent in McQuon capital repairs. So as you look at the amounts for what it takes to close the school, it's important to think about the other costs that have also been involved in doing this. So I don't know, Ernie, you're here. Christine, do you want to go through these? You want me to do it?
I mean, I can, summarize the numbers if you'd
That'd be
like.
great, thank you.
Okay. So what we did was we broke this into 4 pods or 4 stages, as you will. So that we've talked about last spring when you as a committee decided that we were going to close McQuon School. The first one being the pre-K move here to the high school. So there's a listing of what needs to be done here, and the total of that is $428,267.50. Oh, I'm sorry, the total is $472,627.50, of which we've already asked the town of Whitman, which they approved on Monday, and we've talked to the Board of Selectmen in Hanson, and they gave us their blessing to move forward, of $44,360. So we have to take into consideration that that is a district-wide program. It's Whitman children as well as Hanson children. So the Whitman share is 59.82%, Hanson's is 40.18%. That being said, The 44,360, Whitman share is 26,536. Hanson's is 17,824, which is going to be for projects that are going to be done starting in December. And the rest of the pre-K coming to the high school would be, Whitman share would be 256, 189.62. Hanson would be 172,077 cents. The next phase or pod of expenditures is moving grades K1 and 2 to Indian Head.
Christine, I'm going to stop you.
Yeah, I was going to too.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's important to explain to the people what the McQuon pre-K move to the high school would be, and also to put into the fact that, you know, there was a lot of discussion about being a done deal, not being a done deal. All of this is subject to the funding
Correct.
at town meeting in May.
Correct.
So it's not a done deal. There was a lot of discussion that talked about, oh, this is just a project that's gonna go ahead, and that we mentioned this and that. This has to be voted by the town. So the McQuon pre-K move to the high school is retrofit computer labs into 3 classrooms, renovate classrooms for pre-K, doorways, walls, painting, floor, lighting, install exterior doors with card access up on the back here at the high school, install interior corridor doors, a pre-K playground, a turf kid playground, a playground fence, install 5 bathrooms, plumbing, electrical, sprinklers, ceilings, tiles, ventilation, fire alarms, and concrete work, remove lockers and install storage cubbies, moving companies and crate rentals, update the roadway for traffic flow around the building, which includes widening, drainage, and resurfacing of blacktop, an additional day for staff to move to the high school. That comes to $472,627.50 just for that move.
And, yeah, and if I could also add, the issue of the roadway is something that needed to be addressed whether this move was going to take place anyway. If you have driven around the high school, there are issues with that road. The biggest issue is coming down the side hill out here. Very icy, it needs to be redone, resurfaced. So some of that would have been a capital expense that would have come to school committee anyway, and then maybe on to the towns. The other piece I think is important to bring up is the high school was chosen as the location for the preschool after a tremendous amount of consideration and looking at the needs and how many classrooms needed to be used. At this point in time, the preschool needs 5 classrooms. Duval School was a school that was looked at as a possibility, but trying to locate 5 classrooms that would really work for this looked problematic. Traffic flow there is problematic, and also because much of that building is older, the issues of asbestos and what we didn't know, the unknowns were far greater. There were many models on the South Shore of preschools being at high schools, and once those programs are up and running, tremendous benefit to young people as well as older people. So that's why that happened. The other piece is that working on a building that we know, such as the high school, which is 12 years old, is a known entity. You're not going to hit asbestos. The plumbing where these little small bathrooms are going to go is already an area that has been plumbed. So it's not additional plumbing. I mean, there's work that will need to be done. So there was a lot of thought going into this. This is not something that was just, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We understand that it's not cheap to do that. But the other option is staying at McQuon. That's where the place is. And I have serious concerns about using that building for teaching and learning much longer than we're already using it. So I just thought it was important to bring that out, that there was a lot of thought that went into this, and the amount of space that was needed, this was the building that had that flexibility.
So the next pod or stage is
We got a question. Do you want to ask first? That's fine.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm not confused. So this move to the high school, it's subject to funding, right? As far as
We don't have it in the budget.
Okay, but I do know, or at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's a plan in place as far as, or at least the idea, classrooms are being moved, classrooms are being constructed, so things are happening, but we may find out that this may not be a go. So can you provide some clarification on that, or?
Well, obviously, Kevin, you can't go and spend $500,000 without town vote
Sure.
in May.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, the earning, we've got crews starting soon, though, right, with projects in-house and other things? Yeah, like people are being displaced or rooms being moved around, I'm just trying to gain information and some insight.
The three computer labs that we are going to be taking apart during the Christmas break will be because of upgrading computers, and those computer labs are not needed anymore. That's in anticipation of the three classrooms moving over to there. So, Kev, I think if we didn't do this at all, we'd probably still do something like this. So the carpet's being removed and tiles being put down in those three classrooms. And that's as far as we're
Well,
going.
That's exactly right, and that's exactly what's going on at Conley School right now. Conley had a very traditional computer lab, and now that's going to be reworked with tile on the floor and much more. We talked about how technology's changed. Perfect example. Computer labs are, you know, that's old. So even if this didn't go through, there would have been a moving of the computer labs here anyway.
Kind of doing, for lack of a better concept, I think maybe some room upgrades in anticipation that this will.
Right,
Exactly.
exactly. So
Very much so.
if this part happens, it was going to happen anyway, okay?
Yes, and what Ernie was just spoke to, that 44,360 has already been approved.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be really a relooking at how we do computers, one-to-one devices, that
It's
sort of
basically taking advantage of something.
Right, exactly. It was all part of making this plan work. But good, thank you, Kevin, for that question. That's part one. Okay, now, part
Go ahead,
two?
Chris.
Part two is
Okay.
moving kindergarten, first and second grade to Indian Head, and that total is $332,568.25. And Bob, if you want to.
Okay, part of that breaks down to the moving company and crate rentals, 23 of them, library and administrative office move, retrofitting classrooms for additional spaces, 3, retrofit with new bathrooms, which includes plumbing, electrical, sprinklers, ceilings, tiles, ventilation, fire alarm, and concrete work. 1 classroom split into 2 large bathrooms to accommodate the extra children. Food service freezer, additional day for staff to move to Indian Head. Technology equipment removal and reinstallation, fencing around the Indian Head play area, pod rental, and the final cleanup. And that cost is $332,568.25, as you just stated.
Any questions on that?
Christine, quick question.
Sure.
For you or for Ernie, what are we thinking is the Indian Head play area? What are we, the fencing that's going around, what are we fencing in?
What are we fencing in, Chris?
Yeah, it says fencing around Indian Head play area. What are
Okay, is that on, so we have a design
Yeah.
of a play area, Indian Head. If you're coming up School Street from McQuon School on the right-hand side, going before the loop, it'll be on the left-hand side. So the area that we're talking about, the type of fence we're talking about, is a 6-foot chain link fence. And I think the number that we're carrying for that is somewhere around $18,000, somewhere in there.
Okay, but this, the play area would kind of be the inside of that loop, am I thinking of it the right way?
Yeah, so
Okay.
as you're driving up, from McQuon, you take that first right, and you're heading into the front of the school. There's a grassed area on the left-hand side, more towards Indian Head side. That's where it would be placed, right there. But we've also put money in fencing around the front of Indian Head. So we would have 2 fire gates, what we had talked about before, 2 fire gates, and then fencing continuing around from School Street all the way across to Indian Head Street, and then coming back towards the school.
All the way down Indian Head Street?
Not all the way down, Mike, halfway down.
Okay, and then coming
I
back?
think it's 840 lineal feet of fencing that we're getting from School Street up, taking a right on Indian Head, and then coming back towards the school.
So the thinking here is the kids will be out playing in that area,
Yeah.
make sure there's a fence for safety and security. You
Correct.
don't want a little first grader wandering into
Exactly.
Route 58.
'Cause it's
And Ruth had said it earlier, as we looked at these playgrounds and the structures and the handicap accessibility, there's a boatload of towns out there that the ADA has contacted, and they have to make corrections to playgrounds. My town alone, every playground at every school has a restriction on it, and they have to now upgrade that and put a different surface. What we're looking at is the money that we spend on a playground, we could put a small turf area out there. The playground that we'll put out here for the preschool is designed to have a turf-type surface underneath it, so it'll be handicap accessible and multi-purpose. So when you look at the cost of playgrounds, maybe a turf area works, instead of a playground. That's a possibility.
Thank you. Ready?
Next.
Okay, this is the easy one.
This is the easy one, right. It's moving Indian Head Grade 5 to Hanson Middle is $8,875.
That's a pretty simple one. Moving company and crate rentals.
we like that one.
5. Additional day for staff to move to Hanson Middle, 5 staff members, $8,875.
Yep, and it's, well, Bill's here, but it's, you want to talk about the 5th grade space? I think it's, just makes people feel comfortable when we talk about it. Yeah, this is the easy part.
Bill, you did a heck of a job on this. Bang-up job, buddy.
Yeah.
I think I should get a raise. Pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to move the 5th grade to the front end of the first floor. There's 5 classrooms down in that area, so that they'll be self-contained. There's a bathroom, there's a pod area, and it's pretty much an easy move. As I said at a transition meeting last week, we could probably do it January 2nd if, we had a couple more weeks, but coming back, it's just moving a couple rooms and teachers, and they can move right in, and we're ready to go. There's really nothing that needs to be done to the building to accommodate the 5th grade coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, so when we had a parent meeting in October, they had a lot of questions, and they were very comfortable when they actually went down and saw what that space looked like. So I think that's going to work very, very well. So thank you, Bill. And next piece,
Is moving the special education programs from McQuon and Indian Head to Duval. And that estimated cost is $23,750. I don't know if you want to.
yeah, maybe Kyle, you could address that for us, please?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if you want me to read through the pieces here that Bob was reading, but the moving company and crate rentals, 2 programs into 4 classrooms. They cater to cognitive program, cater to autism program, the 3 to 5 cognitive program, and 3 to 5 autism program. Renovate classroom for additional space. There is 4 classrooms right now, but a decent-sized space between those that we thought we could divide up and have a settling area and some support area for those programs. So there's really potential to put even a better space there that exists. With a couple of tours of the building, some of those pieces are coming up. So I think it'll be not only a great-sized classroom for what will be a small enrollment, but it'll also have 2 spaces that are separate. So a student who's having a difficult day or a student who's having a great day and needs some extra space to really achieve what's on their IEP, they would have that extra space. And like all the others, additional day for staff to move.
And the decision for Duval is clearly, as you saw earlier, that is where enrollment's going down, and it seemed to be a very workable program. At this point in time, there is no substantially separate program at Duval. They have an inclusion program, and the impact on the school will certainly be that many of our students are included to the greatest extent possible in these programs, but we don't see that as a burgeoning of class size, because due to declining enrollment, class size there is under control. Thank you, Kyle.
And the last category on your sheet is additional considerations, which is we have there Indian Head Playground, the surface of the Indian Head Playground, fencing around the Indian Head Playground, roadway and parking at Indian Head, parking, not expansion, but off a school, on School Street, create parking spaces for front parking loop area at Indian Head. And the other considerations, which we don't have pricing on, is Memorial Hall refurbishing the front entrance, creating a space here at the high school for a language lab, and then some discussion about final cleanup and how we're gonna turn the building over to the town.
And I think one of the dramatic costs there is what it costs for a playground these days, which we saw, the estimate came out at $96,000. It's a lot of money.
Just
And
for the
really
playground.
feeling that to push that into the project probably was not what we wanted to do, but really have it on outside of the project, so that could be a separate decision.
And Ruth, just to clarify, so we're all on the same page, that playground cost with the surface and the fencing is about $178,000.
That's exactly right.
So,
It's a big expense, and I think it's really a consideration, as, you know, Ernie just told you what's happening in North Attleboro. Playgrounds are very controversial right now, and they have to have many safety considerations, and in some cases, schools just don't have them because it's just not worth the liability.
Used to play kickball.
Run
Has-
around.
I have a question. Has this been split up as to which of these expenses are district versus
I'm
what would
gonna
cost the town
report
of
that.
Hanson?
I'm
Is
doing it.
that
I just
how
did the
that's being
numbers,
broken
Kevin.
up? Okay.
Okay.
See if they're the same.
So, as you look at the McQuon closing summary, the town of Whitman is going to be paying $256,189.62 for the renovations here
That is correct.
at the high school. To move McQuon K-2 to Indian Head, and to move Indian Head grade 5 to middle, and to move McQuon and Indian Head sped programs to Duval is a $581,631.12 to the town of Hanson. For a total amount of $820.75. The reason I came up with a little different than what yours was, Christine, is I added the 44,360 back in to come to a total figure. Because the 44,360 is already,
Allocated.
Right, it's already
Allocated.
allocated and appropriated.
so that's what it's going to be in true hard numbers. The town of Hanson would be asked to spend $581,631.12, give or take. In Whitman, $256,189.62. Correct?
Correct. Yep.
So, just so everyone knows, those are the figures.
Yep.
And this is what we talked about, the closing of McQuon, as we've been talking about it
Bob,
for a while. Yeah, Mike?
McQuon and Indian Head sped program to Duval, Hanson foots that whole bill?
Kyle and I were talking, probably not. That's something we're gonna need to look at, just how that does break down. Yeah,
In
'cause
the
it's-
grand scheme of things, though, Mike, not to interrupt you,
No,
Ruth,
but you're
it's
right.
$23,000. If you
Compared
break
to
it out,
580.
60/40, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
The staff's pretty have to keep both. Pay staff.
It has.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
it has to be.
It has to be. We don't have to.
Can't
No, I think the important piece,
Yeah, then
the piece I brought out at the beginning is that to repair the McQuon School to where we would feel could keep going is $4,336,000. No, I know, I mean, but I think it's important because the numbers are all big and we respect that. But, you know, a lot of, that's important because this is largely precipitated from a meeting that we had with the Capital Committee last year. We went to them last February and indicated that it was going to take close to $5 million to really fix McQuon. And they just looked at us like, we don't have $5 million to fix McQuon. And I think the other piece to take into account is $554,000 has been spent just in the last 3 years to keep McQuon up and running. So clearly, you really want to look at how taxpayer dollars are spent. These costs, and we respect them, but it's once and done money. Once this move is made, it's made. The move of fifth grade to Hanson Middle, there's plenty of room to do that. The real money buster is trying to retrofit here, and also Indian Head School, and it's an old building, and it's going to incur costs. So we felt it was extremely important to get this out to everybody tonight.
Rob?
So separate from budget, well, I always bring this up, communication with the staff, and the staff may be getting to see where they're gonna go as far as, and I know for fifth grade they have.
Subject to
but
funding,
It's
yes.
subject to, yes, everything's subject to appropriation, just as far as McQuon teachers getting to see, or have an idea as to where they might be at Indian Head School, that kind of communication.
Well, we have Dr. Wilcox with us this evening. So Beth, why don't you come up and talk about the work you've been doing?
Sure, absolutely. So we've just been looking at the building and what spaces that we have in the building. And it's dependent upon where the special education programs go, and looking at what space we have in our building versus spaces in other buildings in the district. So a lot of what we have has been dependent upon decisions that are made district-wide, which is why I have held back on providing staff with information, but those things, we do have drafts of that information, and once certain information is a definite, and then we share that, then I'm happy to share what our drafts are for definitely spaces and where everyone's going. And there's also consideration of, I've had a lot of staff members ask for moves because of the transition. So transitions between grade levels and whatnot, so looking at that too.
So having the moving target that you have, God love you, when would you anticipate the teachers would have an idea as to where they might be? And a guess.
That's something that I would say as we come back from the holiday break.
Okay,
Yeah, I would think.
okay. Oh, so that's not
Yeah,
that far out.
it's pretty
Okay,
solid.
okay.
I mean, we really have to just do some tweaking, looking at what we're doing, but
Right.
Okay,
won't be that
Absolutely.
hard to do.
all right. Thank you.
And it would be more of a general area, not so much specific as
Sure.
classrooms.
Sure.
Just yet, just as what I said with the personnel, not knowing who would like to move into and looking at some
Right.
of the requests that have been made already.
Yeah.
And working with the contract and making sure that we are, making those decisions with the contract in mind.
Mm-hmm. No,
So-
absolutely. Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Beth.
Thank you. So to just recap this quickly, I gave out all the numbers, and it's not a done deal. I know I've heard lots of rumors around town and lots of things going on about this is happening, that's happening. This is all subject to appropriation. It's been a lot of careful planning by the staff and the administration, and God knows Ernie has been up nights thinking about it, so we'll be bringing this forward. There'll be more information for anyone who's watching. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to call and get your answers, because bad information is bad and good information is what you need to see how we're moving forward in the district. Any questions about McClellan closing from anyone? Okay, excess and deficiency certificate. I believe I have to read this in, Christine, and then we're going to vote it.
I don't believe you need to. The Department of Revenue has certified it.
Oh, good, so you're all
So
set.
you're all set. I believe that you all got an email from the Department of Revenue, maybe about a month ago.
Yes.
Did you all receive it?
Got that.
Yes.
So they certified it at $936,761. I'm just going to review with you where we started and where we ended up. So at the end of last year, we were certified at $1,246,482. So what the activity that happened in FY '17 and for the state to certify at $936,761. We had unexpended previous year encumbrances of just over $69,000. We had unencumbered or unexpended appropriations of just over $167,000. We had unanticipated revenue of $160,554. You voted to use $750,000 out of the E&D to fund this year's budget. We had the prior year Department of Revenue adjustments of $50,000 that reverse itself on July 1st. And then we had DR adjustments of minus 7,212, for a total of, the total activity was negative 309,721, bringing it down to the certification of 936,761.
Anyone have any questions about that? All I can tell you is if we backfill the budget 750 this year to balance it, it'll leave $186,000 in E&D.
Right.
And that definitely can't happen, so we better start
That's why
thinking
it's
of,
important to bring it up.
yeah, I mean, it's
That's
super
why I wanted you
important.
to know.
We've been hitting E&D every year for 600, 700, 750.
We were able to put back prior years, and
Yeah, this year,
obviously.
Not quite as much.
well, we
Well,
said,
Munis, where
we said with
forecast.
Munis it was gonna get closer and closer and closer, so it has.
It seems like the difference is we did 500 every year for a while, and then
We started,
we went to 750, and now that difference between 500 and 750 is what we're looking at as.
that's exactly right.
exactly right.
Yeah,
So-
so we have to be very mindful of that.
So, okay, are you looking for us to vote on the certification, or are you
think
just
you're-
this a
I think you're all
notification?
set.
You're all set, you just needed to know that, because if
Okay.
you were gonna use any money to balance the 19 budget, you can't use any more than what's certified by the state.
Okay. We have a request for the
Here it is.
old use of the turf field.
This is from Dan Driscoll, who's president of Whitman Baseball. And he's interested in having some of our leftover turf, roughly a 60 to 70 long by 12-inch wide. So
He's requesting, he's very appreciative, the size roughly 60 to 70 feet long by 12 inches wide. So, we have some of that rolled up over by the old, over by the maintenance building, just kind of hanging out. And I think Ernie has got,
some of it's going to be used,
Yeah.
but I know he has this much to spare because I asked him about it.
so I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? My next question would be, and I hate to be the guy that asks this, but somebody has to. Is there any liability? If we give them the turf and something goes wrong?
I don't believe so. If you declare it surplus, you can give it to them.
Could we have them sign something, Bob, if you wanted to, that they just accept
I think they're just using it to line the batting cages.
Yeah, that's what he needs it for.
You know,
I
so it's
get
not-
that.
It's not to be played upon,
That's
so
what
to
it
speak.
says, small
Doesn't
piece
matter.
for
Bob
the,
So he's using it here.
just, I'd say declare it surplus and then.
Yeah,
Dear-
I think declare it surplus.
Declare it surplus, and then they can give it to them.
I think maybe we're past that. If we give it to them, and there's, I think we'll probably be talking to, what's his name? Andy Walk. Maybe we should ask that question.
Especially nowadays.
But that's all I'm saying. I hate to be,
I think it's, they literally should sign, if you're worried about it, and I think it's not a bad point to bring up, just have them sign a little,
Sign
it's
a
a sentence,
disclaimer,
right? And
yeah.
we hereby identify and hold Whitman Hanson harmless.
I love
going
everybody,
forward.
baseball, football, but if somebody gets hurt, you know what happens.
It's fine.
All right, so would you like me to,
I'd like to table this until
I'll ask Andy.
I find out.
We
you
talked-
want me to withdraw my motion?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, we can check with Andy.
We'll check
They're
with
not
Andy.
using it out here, right?
I'd like to just check with them. I mean,
Where they use it.
you guys can vote on it, but I'm bringing
On
up,
their own batting cages.
just,
I already withdrew the motion, so.
okay, next. Surplus.
This is from Mark Stefanski. It's this. Here's mine. You can- But you can.
Due to
just-
the implementation of new K-8 science curriculum reflecting the recently adopted Mass State science standards, a large amount of outdated materials and old curriculum supplies need to be declared as surplus. These items vary from outdated science text to incomplete science fonts. I respectfully request these items be declared as surplus materials. Sincerely, Mark Stefanski, Science Curriculum Director.
Motion to declare them surplus,
Second.
as read.
Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. I don't think we have any gifts.
Field
We have
trip.
one gift.
One gift.
One gift, in your packet,
Yes.
last page, today's packet.
Oh, the new one.
Oh, I didn't get
Back of the little
Got it?
staple gun.
a little staple.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
Dear Whitman Hanson Regional School Committee, on December 6, 2017, I received an anonymous donation from a parent who has children at Duval School for $120. This parent wanted the $120 check to go to the children that needed help with school field trips, book clubs, or anything that the principal felt was appropriate. She wanted children that don't always have little extras that others have. The parent has made this donation with the spirit of holidays in mind. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. You can reach me on my direct line, Maureen McKenzie. I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? The gifts are always easy. Field trips. We have one field trip. Destination, it's for the show choir. They're going March 3rd, and they're coming home March 3rd, 8 a.m. And they're going to arrive at 11. They're going to the Daniel High School in Green Hill, Madison, Connecticut, for a show choir festival. Approximately 35 students. They're going to have transportation, which is a bus, and they are asking to waive the school nurse because there are people there to take care of any issues. I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Okay. I know that I'm going to ask if the committee doesn't care, because it's a late hour, we skip over the subcommittee reports. But I do have a warrant subcommittee meeting agenda for meeting minutes of December 6, 2017, that I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. If no one has a problem, being 10:25 in the evening, I would,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
all those in favor? Good night. Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Never heard back from John.
Just fall asleep.